It is a stress test of the system, and it's not doing so hot lately.
Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that has consumed more throat coat over the course of the last 5 or 6 days than at any other point in its entire adult life. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
That was about it.
That was about it. She coughed. I will have hit the cough button on the edit machine there so that we won't have heard that, but that's what that was. Tonight is still a Wednesday, still February 5th, and still 2025.
It's going to be 2025 for a while, I think.
I don't know. The last 2 weeks of the Trump administration, I believe, have taken about 7.5 months.
By the way, today, 18 years ago, I started working for the IRS. I got an email today.
Aww.
18 years. I'm like an adult now at the federal service.
That sucks.
18 years at the IRS. My son, we were in the car, and he asked me, he likes to listen to the show when I allow him to when it's not terribly inappropriate, and I can jump around for him on it. And we were listening to the end of our most recent episode a couple of weeks ago, and you were discussing going to the movies. And his question was, how does Abe make so much money that he can go to the movies all the time? And I rejected the premise.
Works for the IRS.
I rejected the premise of the question, first of all, before I gave him the satisfaction of an answer, which was Abe pays a monthly pass. It's like a streaming pass, basically, but he can go to the movies as many times as he wants every year for just $20 a month. It's quite a deal. And he stayed silent for longer than it should have taken him. And he said, so for just $240, he can go to the movies every day if he wants to? I said, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. He goes like 60 or 70 times a year. It's like, wow. It's one of those, for a 12-year-old, it's like, man, being a grown-up just kicks so much ass.
Easy living, Calvin, easy living.
Yeah. And I was like, no, he works for the government. He works for the tax collecting agency of the federal government. And he has for basically his entire adult life. So he can do, and he doesn't have kids. He can do literally whatever he wants.
He doesn't have kids, so he can do anything.
18 years in, and still haven't taken the buyout, I take it.
No, we have not taken the buyout. By the way, just real quick, I wanted to mention this because there isn't a place to fit this, but this happened just a couple of days ago. So, like where I live, there's a trail. They call it the Beltline Trail, and people are out and about, and there are some regulars that are there that I see. And some of them are like crazy. Like if they're like in New York, they'd be the types to push people into the train tracks, like that kind of energy. But they're mostly harmless on the trail because you really can't push anybody.
Do they still try to push people into the old train tracks, even though there's no train coming anymore?
New York, anyway.
If there was, I mean, it's mostly the opportunity to do it. But they just kind of have that energy, like leave them be. And one of them, he just goes on and on and on about something, like some conspiracy. And I always kind of take my headphones off just to kind of see what the latest is. And
catch a little bit of local flavor on your way by.
So the most recent incident, we're about to cross this pedestrian crossing where the cars are, and there is a Tesla that stopped to let the people cross. And he happened to be there, I happened to be there, and others were crossing. And he looks at the Tesla, and he does the Hitler salute. Now, this gentleman is a black guy, in body, but in spirit, he's not on this planet. He's just somewhere else.
Right.
But he's doing the salute to this Tesla, and the person in the Tesla is aghast. Like, they are like, what the fuck is happening?
What do I do?
But they don't want to. They can't do anything because they also sense the energy that he emanates, which is like, I'm gonna fucking kill you if you do anything. And so they're just kind of taking it, and they have to wait for him to cross, and he is idle. And it was just a very amusing scene. He didn't do anything. He eventually let them pass. But it was just funny how he gathered that much to say, like, hey, we're simpatico, you and the Tesla driver. And they're like,
I paid $90,000 for my advanced robot electric driving machine, only to have homeless people approvingly give me the Nazi salute as I drive around downtown Atlanta. Fuck. What a silly world we live in.
yes.
Speaking of silly worlds, we are technically still fresh back from Vegas. Time means nothing. Distance means nothing. We are fully dislocated in time and space because of our travels and our sicknesses.
But also, that place is so disorienting.
Yeah.
We might as well never come back.
Made no money. Only lost money. That
Why
was
would we make money?
I don't know. You get lucky fucking spinning those stupid slot thingies.
I didn't say out loud because I didn't want to put anything out in the world. But my thought was, I hope that all of our luck comes in the form of the travel arrangements and the airplanes
I see,
and the weather. I want all the luck to come there. I don't need luck in casinos. I need luck in all of the shit that really matters.
I would have taken
everything was perfect.
I would have taken a travel delay for like
nothing.
For like 15 grand, three stacks of $5
that's not
grand
how
in my
it would
pocket.
have been.
That would have been fine.
Because it wouldn't have happened. Like, it worked out great. All the flights went fine. Not even one of them crashed.
Oh, that's great.
They were all on time. The hotel was great. The weather was great. Everything was great.
It was a more or less perfect trip as far as all of the, as Lori is saying, the
logistics.
The logistics go.
And the things you can't control and really wish you could.
Our hotel, we stayed at, it's called the Nomad Hotel. It's the top 4 floors of the Park MGM, which, as we noted, was a smoke-free facility, which was
only one.
Awesome decision that we made to stay at this place.
We didn't even know.
But yeah, the only casino I think that we found that was entirely smoke-free. And the Nomad is being rebranded in fairly short order, so you're not going to be able to stay at... Nomad is a brand. There's one in New York, one in LA, and one in London. You can stay at those. There's a few of them. They've recently been bought by, I think, Hilton Hotels has bought the brand and taken over management of them, and they're not going to continue the arrangement with the one that sits atop the Park MGM. And so now Park MGM has to rebrand it as something else. But it's very cool, sort of hotel within a hotel.
So great.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, is there just one like front lobby? Like, is there like there are 2 hotels? Like, what's the setup? A hotel within a hotel?
So
How does that work?
There's 2 separate entrance.
Yeah, different entrances. So you go to the Park MGM entrance if you want the Park MGM lobby, and you go to the. I mean, these hotels are
the size of city blocks.
They're campuses. They're not. It's not like a fucking normal hotel. You know, like there are 3 different, 4 different, 5 different ways to walk into the bottom of these buildings. It's not like it's just one front door and one back door.
Right.
And so there's just a separate.
I've been there, but I don't recall there being hotels within hotels. It's just been like Planet Hollywood or Aria or whatever.
So if you were staying at the Park MGM, you wouldn't probably know about the Nomad.
Okay.
Like, you could wander into the lobby there, but you'd be like, I wonder what this is. Like,
I see.
It's not advertised. It's a boutique hotel. There's one, I think actually Planet Hollywood has one, the Sahara has one. There's a few of the hotels have these little mini hotels within the hotel.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very like it's sort of, I wouldn't say sparse, but it's fairly austere in its decorations compared to like most nice modern new hotels. Like,
it felt like an apartment.
It felt like a city apartment. It had like wooden furniture and some
wooden floors
and some like fancy rugs on the floor instead of wall-to-wall carpeting, and instead of like fucking plushy surface. Like, you think of a new hotel room, you think either it's going to look like the inside of a new Wendy's or a Verizon, right, where it's all just like sleek aluminum and glass everywhere, with shiny plastic surfaces, or it's going to be extremely plushy everywhere, like it's the inside of an insane asylum, but nice, where
Right.
you like just you bounce off everything and you'll be fucking fine. This hotel is built more like
It's like apartments.
my mother's house. Like, it has nice wooden furniture. It has a clawfoot tub in the middle of the bedroom. It has, again, like, I don't know how else to describe it. It just looks almost like mid-century
It's
modern
homey.
decorated.
Yeah, very
homey.
mid-century. It was missing a kitchen, but other than that, if I took a picture and sent it to you, you'd be like, "Whose apartment are you in?"
Right.
Like, it
Okay.
felt furnished like a home, not like a hotel.
Right, which was cool. And we were in a suite, so we had like a little living room and also the bedroom area, and it was super, super nice. And again, non-smoking, which by the time you're walking around the entire city, you very much come to appreciate, because,
Apparently, everybody starts smoking when they go to Las Vegas.
yeah, there's smokers everywhere.
I don't
When you
think
say
that's it. I
smokers-
think they start smoking when they get there.
Are these cigarette smokers or like weed smokers?
Cigarettes.
Yeah, cigarettes.
Okay.
I didn't notice.
Disgusting.
I didn't notice any weed in the
Tiny little whiffs.
casinos themselves.
No.
Plenty of weed on the streets,
The streets, yeah.
but not
So
too many.
cigarette
weed
smoking is
smokers
still
inside.
a thing in America. Like, I remember seeing a lot of it in Montreal, but I don't
I think
recall.
only in Las Vegas, in the casinos. I think, okay, so here's the thing with Las Vegas that I discovered very quickly. We landed, we go to baggage claim, and I said, "This is evil Disney." And that's what it is. It's a different place. People are different there. And the way they are at Disney is everybody is lovely and happy and on the same team. And in Vegas, everyone is evil and everything is evil. And they should never change. But
That's funny.
But that place is evil Disney.
I've never been to Disney, so I've just been to the evil side. That's
Yeah.
So while we were there, the idea was to just sort of walk around and see everything, because I had a modest gambling budget, but I didn't want to spend my entire time gambling, and we're not shoppers. Like, we don't love to like walk around and
Don't
just
need to go
spend money.
acquire things.
Right.
And if I buy something, it's going to live in my house for the next fucking 50 years, right? So like, I can't just be willy-nilly buying things, because I don't ever throw anything away.
Keep trash.
I even keep the trash. So we're basically just going to like sightsee and just like sort of take it all in. And Lori had a spreadsheet of all of the different casinos that she wanted to see,
All of them.
which essentially was all of them.
and you guys walk them all, or like taking whatever.
yes.
26,000 steps per day, I think we averaged.
Look at
Evil
that.
Disney.
Over
You
the
walk
3
that
days.
much at Disney, but it's not evil. It's evil. It's evil in Vegas.
And like, some of the older ones are just disgusting. And then even in
And
the
hilarious.
even in the nicer, newer ones, what I noticed was that occasionally, and like, we didn't drink a ton. I would say I was
At
only
night, a
drunk
little.
once, basically. And it ended up being that Sunday night, as predicted. It was the only day that I would say that I got drunk. Otherwise, we hardly drunk at all.
It's part of it. Those casinos are so on purpose disorienting. It didn't feel like I could let my guard down ever. It's like, what if we get lost? We'll never get back. Because I don't even know how to get out of this building.
It is funny how, like, obviously they're designed to be sort of rat mazes in there, right? Where they want you to get in
They don't want you to leave.
and then have trouble leaving, right? And what's funny at the same time, the main thing that I noticed on day one was how rarely was the opportunity for a person to just find a place to sit,
Yeah, you can't sit.
a place to sit and observe without spending money. Like,
No, evil Disney.
there are 0 places to just sit and observe without
Because
spending
admission
money.
is free. At Disney, the upfront cost is high. It's like $150 a day to go in the parks. But once
Right.
you're there, go sit in a restaurant, even if you don't have a meal there. Whatever. We don't care if there's room. Have a sit. In these casinos, they're free to get in. You know, like you can just wander into any of these places. But if you want to put your butt somewhere, you got to pay up.
Yeah. And it's fucking expensive. Like if you want to buy, like when we would go and buy cocktails somewhere, it was a $45 to $48 tab, no matter what.
For the both of us.
For the two of us, one cocktail each, you're spending $25 a cocktail before you tip.
Yeah.
Like, so every time I went up to a bar to order 2 cocktails, it's like $60 counting,
Right.
including the tip. And
'Cause
that
we have a problem.
Like I know that we're not people who go out very much, so this is like, it's quite the shock to just every single time you want to walk up to a bar to be like, yeah, 2 cocktails, $60, and it's not like you can. It's not like if I ordered an old fashioned from the bottom, like give me something from the bottom row. It's not going to save me any
$20.
fucking money.
Yeah.
It's still going to be $22.
That's
So
right.
it's like, all right, make me the fucking fancy one that's 26 instead of the one that sucks ass that's 22. You know, very, very silly. And then yeah, of course they will give you booze while you're gambling if you sit yourself
You're
down.
just giving your money to them anyway.
Right. So
Yes.
I sit down in front of a slot machine and stick $100 in it. And it's going to take 5 minutes at best before the cocktail waitress finds her way around to you, right? So and then it's going to be another 5 to 7 to 10 minutes probably before she rotates back around with your drink. It's like, well, I can't leave. I just ordered the drink. Like now I'm pot committed to at least sitting here and slowly playing through this money here.
Or you can go put your butt in a restaurant and spend $50 to $100 a meal for something, whatever.
Right.
Or you can go put your butt in a theater and spend $50 to $100 for that hour.
There's just so little way. Like
They don't
the
want you
average
sitting.
ticket everywhere you go is $100 fucking. Like that was what was most confounding to me was like every time you go to
Everything's
open up a
$100.
ticket, it's going to be $100 fucking. There's very little like street food
So my
type
one
of
complaint
interactions where you're like,
Is that there was not enough snacks.
right, I could just spend $9 here. Like I'd be happy to spend $9
Give me
here.
some chicken nuggets for $10.
Yeah.
I will give you $10 if you just give me a little cup of chicken nuggets.
But it's
They
not.
don't want to do that.
Every interaction is like, no, we want your $100.
You need
Like,
to sit here and get waited on, and you will be served a basket of chicken nuggets, and you will tip, and you will get a drink. We did
Of-
have In-N-Out.
Yep, we got an In-N-Out burger. That was affordable because they're relatively
And
local
Taco
there
Bell.
on the West Coast. Yeah, we treated ourselves to Taco Bell at
Nice.
one point.
There just weren't. What they need, what that strip needs, is some more food trucks.
Right.
Like they would have gotten more
Right,
of
that's-
my money.
The reason we ended up at Taco Bell is because there was just no other place. It felt like, unless we wanted to get a Chick-fil-A or something, like there wasn't an option to not spend $100 goddamn
And
dollars
it's not
on
even
lunch.
the amount of money; it was the amount of food.
Right, I don't want all this fucking food. I
Yeah.
just want something that's going to get
I'm a
me
little
through
hungry.
to the $1,000 dinner that we're going to have tonight. Like
Right.
we cannot do multiple $100 a plate fucking situations here. That's crazy in one day. So yeah, we ended up getting splitting a crunch wrap at Taco Bell.
If Vegas is listening, you would have gotten more of my money if you had had snack options.
And if we'd gone off strip, if we'd gone to Fremont or whatever,
Whatever.
that would have been more likely
Yes.
and more present.
Right. Yeah.
But we weren't. We just stayed on the strip the whole time. The amount of walking that you do,
Unless you
just Uber all the fucking time, I guess. But like the amount of walking that is available to you is amazing.
Yeah.
And we went to like 20 different casinos. It felt like.
so many. I can count.
Yeah, count them up. And it's funny how quickly I'm able to, even though they're so similar, like they all have the same fucking games. Because there's only like 3 different gaming companies that provide these machines to these different casinos. And there's only 2 main casino owners anyway, right? So it's MGM or it's Caesars.
23.
Wait, you weren't kidding. Wow, you guys visited 23 different
22.
casinos?
22.
22 different, hotel casinos that we walked through.
Nice.
And they're all the same, but all different.
Right, they're all basically owned by either Caesars Group or the
Park or MGM.
MGM Group, and then even
Wynn Encore is different.
Right.
And the Venetian is different.
But those different ownership groups all buy the same games from all the same two or
they're
three
all the
different
same.
companies anyway. So it's like, look, it's Huff and Puff, and it's
Buffalo.
fucking Mo Mummy, and it's Buffaloes. And the weirdest thing is that for some reason, all of these games, or the majority of these
Very
games,
Chinese.
are all Oriental themed in like a throwback, offensive way almost.
For an American audience or for like a Asian audience?
Here we are.
Seemingly for an American audience, but it's like there's a bunch of like happy, laughing Asian sumo type anime stuff going on there. It's very
Lots
weird.
of Asian stuff. Weird for some reason.
But anyway, very, very strange and wonderful experience. But like I was saying, even though a lot of the gaming floors are all very similar, I still immediately had my favorites and my places that I couldn't fucking stand, just because of the sort of aesthetics of walking into a space there. It's like either this appeals to you or it doesn't, and the absurdity of it all.
It was so good.
Cannot really be overstated. Just how ridiculous everything is, and how big. Like that was the main thing.
Everything is so big
that I was constantly bowled over by, was just how enormous everything is. Like you walk.
Well, and it's the scale that's enormous. The buildings themselves, if you compare them to New York City 100-story skyscrapers, they're teeny tiny. But they're built like what look like, if you showed someone a picture, like, what is this? You'd be like, oh, that's a normal-sized hotel. That's like a, like
right.
you'd have in an Atlanta suburb.
Right,
Just
they're 30, 35 stories tall, something like that.
Yeah, but they're supersized. It's like they changed the scale to a 100. And so these buildings that look normal are actually massive.
Right.
Right, because each casino floor is like its own airport hangar, right? Like it's it's this fucking enormous campus. Right. And it's like you walk through Caesars and it's just forever. Because there are like 4 different parts of the main Caesars building. And then they also have the Caesars Forum or whatever the
shops.
Fuck. With the shops.
The mall that's themed like ancient Rome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a very, very silly place, obviously. Our dinner, the big dinner that we paid for at Bizarre Meats, we will be among the last people to eat at the Bizarre Meats at the Sahara because they're moving.
At that location,
They're moving across town to the Venetian or the Palazzo or something over in that complex, and it was a price fixed menu that you pick the.
You didn't have to.
You didn't have to, but we chose to do the tasting menu, the big one. They had 3 different tasting menu options. They have a mini. They have a.
We did the middle one.
Did we do the middle one?
Well, they had a special one that they're sort of trying out for the new space. Right. But we did the bigger. There's usually just the 2, and we did the bigger of the 2.
Ours was called the Ultimate, though.
Ultimate tasting.
Yeah, Ultimate tasting menu. I'll make sure there's a link to the menu in the show note. It's not quite perfect because they change it from time to time. The online menu didn't represent the exact meal that we had, but.
Is this on the day you guys got the Taco Bell? This is
yes.
the same day that we had Taco Bell. We split because we didn't know what the fuck to eat at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Also,
we had
we're
dinner
3 hours wrong. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had dinner scheduled for 5:30 that night.
8:30 our time.
Right. And like we got to eat, we got to put something in our bodies, but we don't want to spend money, and so I guess we'll get a fucking Crunch Wrap.
It was good. It was a Taco Bell cantina where they also sell booze.
Yeah. Anyway, this Jose Andres meal that we had was. I was nervous about it because I'm
visibly nervous.
I'm not a foodie. Like I don't get excited about fancy food. I will be just as excited about the next time I have a slice of a really good cheese pizza from a really good neighborhood pizzeria as I was for any one of the bites that I had during this $1,000 meal. Right? Like and that's not an exaggeration. With tip, I think. It was $925 was the total for the 2 of us.
Wow.
So we each had 2 cocktails, so that was a little bit of the bill there. But
those cocktails were about $25.
Yeah, $25 a pop.
Not more than
Not more than anywhere else in
anywhere
town.
else.
Wow, that's crazy.
Anyway, this meal, like I know that people who go to fancy restaurants are probably not surprised by this sort of thing, but like there's a course that comes out, and usually it's just a bite, right? And what was this, like a 12 or 15 course meal that they ended up giving
I
us?
could count them.
But like until you get to the final main course, it's like small bite after small bite, and you could sort of get in your head early in the meal like, wait a second, I'm paying $350 for this tasting menu, and I'm halfway through it, and I've had like literally 6 bites of food. What's your deal here, Jose? Because and like I will acknowledge, like they're very fucking fancy bites, you know, like they do this liquefied olive thing that is, it's like a teardrop of a like a green bubble,
olive.
basically.
Just liquid.
It's like, you know, like fucking, what do they call it? Like gastro
Yeah, magic.
gastronomy stuff that they do to it.
This meal in any other city would have cost $250 per person. This was a Vegas-priced meal.
Yeah.
So, needs to be said.
Sure. But still, very fucking fancy
Probably
dinner.
even less, I wonder.
Out of the 15 courses or whatever that I had, and again, with almost every bite stretching my comfort zone to the max.
Yes.
Like I'm a person
He
who
ate steak tartare.
I've never had a bite of steak tartare in my entire fucking life. Why would I eat raw meat? What the fuck are you talking about? We're supposed to cook meat. We've been doing it for thousands of years. It's what allowed our brains to grow in the fashion that they did once we learned to cook the meat. So we didn't eat all the fucking parasites and the bacteria. That's how we became proper humans. Why would I eat it raw? That sounds like a bad idea.
But if you're going to do
yeah.
it, this would be a good first at bat, right? Like they know what they're doing. You're not going to get shitty food. How was it for your first?
So out of the 15 courses, there is only one that I would say, like, no, I don't want to ever eat that again. And that was a bite that was a piece of, what do you call it, Lori?
Foie gras.
Foie gras. So like fucking goose liver that was wrapped in cotton candy. So they bring you out this thing, and it's just a stick, like a large toothpick, or literally just a large toothpick.
A lollipop stick.
Like a lollipop stick. And on the end of the lollipop is a 2.5-inch tall by 2 inches wide, what appears to be a cylinder of cotton candy. But at the center of the cotton candy is this fucking goose liver. And it was the most unpleasant taste and texture that I've ever had in my mouth that I can recall. It was foreign and weird and unpleasant, and I wouldn't do it again.
Was this at the beginning of the courses?
Yeah, this was like the third or fourth thing that I ate over the course of the evening.
Lori, what did you not like
I love
it either?
it.
Oh, okay.
The fancy at Haleo in DC, the big tasting out of the 3 is $120 per person.
Oh, that's much more affordable.
You're paying Vegas prices. There's probably fewer courses, but still, like that was Vegas.
Yeah.
I love almost nothing more. There's 2 things: eating garbage food on the bed, preferably by myself, or equal footing eating fucking incredible fancy food in a restaurant with a person.
That she didn't have to choose. Crucially.
That I don't have to choose. Right. Key is that they just bring it.
Yeah.
I don't get to pick. I don't have to pick. They're just like, here, try this. Here, try this. Here, try this. And I'm going to like all of it. And it's going to be so much better than anything I could do. Like, there is no way. This is years of training. It's ingredients that I have no access to.
Right.
Like, it is so inaccessible to me in every way. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's one of my and the whole time I have to tell myself the reason this is special is because you don't do it all the time. You can't do this all the time or it would be boring.
Right.
like I get mad. Like,
The other-
why isn't this just food?
The other trick to why they give you just a bite or two and then you have to move on to the next thing is because I think there is, like, your brain would immediately become tired of this, what was undeniably the best bite of caprese salad I've had in my entire life by miles, right? And I've had perfectly good, fresh caprese salads before in perfectly fancy restaurants before. But this was just
Different.
a perfect bite of, because it was the mozzarella was prepared in some fucking fancy way. I don't know what the fuck they did, some fancy science to it to make it have this texture that it had. But it was just a perfect 2 bites of caprese salad that if you'd had another 6 wouldn't have been as meaningful as the first one was. Like it simply stopped. In competition with itself, it's no longer interesting. It is the uniqueness of that bite and not being able to go back for a 3rd and 4th and 5th bite that makes the whole thing stand out and work, I think.
So they thought of everything. So even like the order, the sequence, you think is considered? Like they were like...
So only in terms of the...
Sort of.
They divide it into sections because they want you to get it as soon as it's ready and serve it to you at the exact right moment. And because it's happening in like 15 different preparation stations across 5 different kitchens that they have, and it's all open. It's a very cool setup. Like you
so you
watch
guys can
the
see
entire
everybody
thing
do
happen.
everything. How big is how many of y'all were there? How many customers are?
We were there very early.
We were there early, but the restaurant was filled up fairly quickly after they seated.
They stayed busy.
Yeah, they stayed busy.
They stayed busy with their 2-hour dinners.
Our server had, I think, 3 tables that he was working while we were there. And
Our server, who was, a showman, like he's doing work.
Yeah, our server was good, and our busboy in particular was also very good. In just that much more normal, friendly human way, the way that busmen are allowed to be, relative to the waiter who has to fucking perform. Right. Like I much preferred our Hispanic busboy to our South Asian waiter who was
great,
who was very much on. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you about this story that I had when I had this table this other time, and they kept ordering the steak, and then they were like, I was like, you don't want to get that much steak. If you get that much steak, it's going to be too much for you. And they're like, don't tell me what to do, guy. And it's like, all right, I'll back off. And then it wasn't 15 minutes later, they were like, we can't eat any more steak.
We got to have Wagyu beef.
Stop bringing the steak. And it's like, he's like, I can't stop bringing it because you ordered it. And once you order it, it gets cut and it has to be brought out. We can't cancel the order. It's like, well, you're going to have to take some of this steak home for us then because we can't take it. It's like, you tied my arms. I tried to tell you not to order so much. It's like, all right, man, thank you for the fucking dinner and a show, but we can move along here.
The courses are like chunked, so it's like your lighter stuff and then your slightly less light stuff. But within the courses, the dishes just come out.
Okay, gotcha.
When they're ready.
Yeah.
To answer your question.
But again, like the fucking bruschetta that they brought out was just a perfect 2 bites of bruschetta. Like, should it have cost us $18 for those 2 bites? Probably not. But it was a very special 2 bites of bruschetta. And then the steak. The point here, the long story short, because again, this is like a 2.5 hour long dinner, and we didn't fill it with cocktails at the front end or the back end.
A cocktail at the beginning and a cocktail at the end.
It's just how long it took. But the meal culminates in the steak portion of the meal, basically, along with a pile of mashed potatoes and some asparagus and some mushrooms. And it's like, I didn't think I was ever going to get full eating this, but then they bring out this, what turns into
fat.
Like, yeah, it's just 1.5 pounds of meat and fat there on the plate in front of you. It's like, okay, now I understand. And I mean, this was to say that this was the best steak of my life is to undersell it so spectacularly. Like, it was so far and away the best steak that I've ever had in my life.
So good. He even ate the fatty part. He never eats the fatty part.
I'm not a red raw meat fucking give me the fat and the gristle and let me chew it between my teeth kind of guy. Like, I much prefer a hamburger or a good chicken sandwich over a halfway decent steak. But this was just fucking spectacular. And the way that they can get, the way that the char, to have like half an inch of like flaky char on the just cancerous, carcinogenic, like obviously very bad for you char.
So good.
But it was so good. And I have no idea. It's just the combination of the high heat and the fat content.
And the exact cuts of meat that we can't get.
Right.
We can't get those.
But
Only restaurants can get those.
It was just amazing and a spectacular way to finish. And the dessert seems like such a, like, and it's okay, yeah, raspberry tart, fuck you. It was fine, but like compared to the steak, it's like, what is the point of giving me a raspberry tart after that? Figure something else out. And then the only other thing that I'll say about the meal was the first cocktail that I had was super fucking weird, and it tasted like the ocean. It tasted like somebody took a margarita.
It was a margarita with like a salt foam.
Yeah, they put a salt foam on it, and it's like, so every time I took a sip from this otherwise delicious margarita, I'd get this backwash of like Atlantic City ocean water. It's like, that's weird. I don't know that I like this at all, actually. But it was good. It was a wonderful, wonderful meal. And the part of the fun part was also that even though it was a long dinner, we had a 5:30 reservation. So we were walking out the front door at like 8 o'clock after this 2.5 hour long dinner. Like, okay, like, how's the rest of our evening going to go? You know, it was cool to actually be done as early as we were.
Also, the thing I learned, I think we learned it on night one about Vegas. I was worried that we would be staying up too late every night because we both stay up late. It's what we do. It became clear very quickly. There is no staying up late here. You can stay up until morning, or you can go to bed early. There's no late. There's no time that it's going to feel like,
Oh, I see.
oh, okay, we've stayed up late enough. It's winding down, unless you have made it to the morning time. So it's like you might as well stay on East Coast time.
That was the mistake we made, was not just staying on East Coast time from the beginning. And like by staying on East Coast time, I mean basically like stay up until 10 o'clock local. And because that's 1 o'clock a.m.
1
for
o'clock,
us.
exactly.
Like, that's plenty late, you know?
Yeah.
Like stay out until 1 in the morning, like you would if you were like partying
we were pretty good.
vaguely hard on the East Coast, you know, and then head home.
Yeah.
We were pretty good about not, because
I was waking up at
6:30.
the absolute latest I'm waking up is 6:30 Vegas time every single morning, no matter what, because
We're just on East Coast
I'm
time.
on East Coast time, and I'm used to getting up with the kids anyway.
And we're only there for 3 days.
And you're only there for 3 days. And so in reality, I was waking up at 4 o'clock local and laying in bed for 2 hours waiting for Lori to start moving around, because I was just not sleeping at all, basically. I was getting a few hours sleep and then waking up at 4 o'clock local.
But we weren't staying up until 1 a.m. Vegas time.
Right.
Okay.
Which we could have done it because the energy is there.
Yeah.
Like, people are out doing things. 1:30 is early there. You could stay out until 5:30 when the sun starts coming up if you're not careful at these labyrinth casinos. So, like, it's like we would be like, all right, we are going upstairs at 10:30. When the watch says 10:30, we're going to go upstairs no matter what, because it's never going to feel like it's the right time.
Yeah. Anyway, the only gambling that I did was a little bit of sports gambling and a fair amount of roulette and stupid slot machines. I didn't play any table games because what I quickly discovered was that, I wanted to play some Ultimate Texas Hold'em or some blackjack or something like that. But in order to do that, I would have needed to commit my entire gambling bankroll every single time that I sat down at the table. And I didn't want to potentially put $1,000 on the table and then 45 minutes later get up and be like, well, that was the gambling bankroll and that's just going to be the end of things now. Because you can't.
It's just too expensive.
It's just too expensive to sit there and play Ultimate Texas Hold'em. To start, pretty much everywhere we went, it was $15 to sit at the table and get blind, right? So just your ante and your blind, you're going to be out $15. And that's before you can find yourself in $100 hand, right? And it's like rather quickly, if the cards don't run right for you, you could just be done, and that would suck ass. So if I go back because I would much prefer to play table games. I would much prefer to play games where you can be so-called an advantage player as opposed to the stupid slot machines where you are at a distinct disadvantage on purpose. Like have a bankroll of like $5 or $10 grand. Not that you want to lose that, but like you want to have that sort of in your back pocket, like as ammunition in this ongoing battle of attrition against the dealer, right? Like you just don't want to be in a situation where you're constantly feeling the bottom of your bankroll when you sit down at these table games. So that's the one thing that I would potentially do different the next time I go.
Have more money.
Is just have more disposable income at the ready.
That solves a lot of problems. How was the globe, the sphere thing?
Oh, the sphere.
The sphere was
So incredible.
an almost indescribable experience. You cannot.
You just have to go.
Is it weird from the outside that when you guys were getting close to all the stuff?
Oh, it's awesome.
So it's an incredible thing to see from blocks and blocks away.
Right.
And then the closer you
Especially at night.
The closer you get, the more it just looks like a piece of strange infrastructure because it's see-through and you don't get. It's like if you were to get very, very close to an old television
TV screen
where you can just see because the pixels, in order to have whatever resolution that thing is from a mile away, by the time you get that fucking close, it is completely disambiguated. Like it's just dot,
Yeah,
fucking.
It's really like looking at an old TV screen, like with your eye on it.
Yeah.
So as a piece of sort of city infrastructure art, it is spectacular from afar. The closer you get to it, the less amazing it is, because it's just like all of the other enormous buildings around you, more or less. But being inside it is another story entirely. The pre-show stuff sucks ass and is not worth the price of admission.
What is the pre-show like? Just like
just go.
So
look
first of all,
America
they want you to be there 45 minutes before showtime in order to experience the whole thing. Like the reason that they can charge you $150 a seat and it's only a fucking 50-minute movie, they got to give you something more than the 50-minute movie.
They don't,
right?
because you don't want it to last longer than 50 minutes. You're done.
I mean, I don't know. I could have watched another 2 hours of stuff on that screen.
Know.
But they have you interact with fucking Chat GPT androids, basically, but they don't let you interact with them. They have an interlocutor.
Evil Disney.
Somebody who's paid to moderate the conversation between you and the Chat GPT robot.
But you mean like the general audience or you specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the public. Like if you want to talk to it, you just walk up to this fucking robot standing there behind the velvet rope and start to try to have a conversation with it through its interpreter, basically.
Just like when you meet Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, similar to when you meet Mickey Mouse, I guess. But that's lame. Like they do this cool thing with the speaker array where
They show you how good their speakers are.
you stand in one spot on the floor and you hear one language, and then if you move over 3 feet, you can hear only another. You can hear Japanese, and then you can hear German, and then you can hear something else in the next. Like from this lane to this lane to this lane, they have very directed audio, and that's just a demonstration of the technology that they use in the theater to give each individual seat a very particular experience of the sound, so that every single seat in the house has the same experience of the sound, apparently.
The sound doesn't bleed over, so you can't hear some of the Japanese?
No, you don't really hear much of the bleed when you're doing that. It's cool.
Impressive.
But aside from that, it's just like you stand in the lobby waiting for them to finally open the fucking door.
If you're really thirsty, you can go get something to drink for a high price. And I was so thirsty, so I was very excited to go get something to drink.
Yeah. And of course, they don't want you bringing stuff in, so it's like, no, now we're going to charge you $15 for water, because fuck you.
Captive
I
audience.
wanted water. It's not my fault. It's not their fault that I wanted water.
So what time do you guys arrive? An hour before the...
Yeah, we got there early, but we also had nothing better to do.
We had nothing better to do, and we also didn't know, because it's far away from everything, it's like, well, we got to get there, and we don't want to risk not being there, potentially, right? So, like, we got there plenty early, and we stood in the fucking lobby area for 45 minutes
Evil Disney.
before they would finally let you into the pre-show, which was another 45 minutes before the movie actually started. But, you know, whatever. They have this little a screensaver, basically, while you're just sitting there waiting for the show to start. And it's just TV-shaped, basically. Like, across this... It's the biggest IMAX screen you've ever seen that's lit up in front of you, but it's still just a tiny percentage of the dome.
They have like a TV
all
sized,
the way around you, but they have a TV-sized screensaver.
Regular
playing.
movie screen sized, I should say.
But that's the thing. It's far bigger than a regular movie screen.
Huge.
And the movie finally fucking starts, and it's we saw the Darren Aronofsky. It's called Postcard from Earth to show off this this technology here, and it opens as I was sort of guessing that it was like because I'm very annoying, and so I want to guess how things are going to go in my head before they unfold in front of me, like a true asshole.
Yelling at me about worrying about the next thing all the time.
And so I was like, they're going to use this to great effect, where they're going to start with this thing. And I did no pre-reading about this ahead of time. I didn't want it spoiled for me. But the beginning of this movie is going to be on this relative postcard-sized portion of the screen before at some point they're going to reveal the whole thing to us, right? Like, you cannot have this potential thing in your toolbox as a filmmaker.
Yeah, you can't just give it to us all at once
and spoil it for the audience just by splooting it right there at the very beginning.
Right.
And so they do. They show, like, the first 5 minutes is just like you're looking at a regular movie screen. And then rather suddenly the universe opens up in front of you, basically.
Oh, nice.
And it is like truly bizarrely emotionally overwhelming moment. Not because of the content.
No, it's
not,
just
not
really
because
crazy.
of what the movie is trying to do, but the way that you are overwhelmed in going from just sort of a normal large movie screen experience to something else entirely. It is psychologically and emotionally transporting in a way that I cannot remember being sitting in a movie theater before, right? Like, yes, I've had deeply emotional experiences sitting in movies. Off the top of my head, Wes Anderson's The Steve Zissou movie was a profoundly emotional experience for me sitting there in the movie theater as it was happening, but it was not like this. This was physically and psychologically staggering in a way that just seeing a really good movie is not. And that's what I mean when I say it's sort of impossible to
you just have to
explain. You just have to see it to understand it. Your breath catches when it happens the first time. Like, it is that stunning when it happens.
And it happens suddenly, but also slowly. Like, it is a process, and it's just like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, it's really intense.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Even though you know it's going to happen.
Right.
Like, you see how big the screen actually is. That's why you're there.
Right. Like, intellectually in my head, I know what's coming. I must be prepared for this. And yet, when it happens, it's still like, oh, wow. Like, what? And it's like, what can't the human being do? like as ridiculous. Like, it's just a big fuck you screen, right? But it's also like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's an experience that I think we reach for, of awe and sort of mystification and to be like, when you go into one of those fucking planetariums, like, that's what you're supposed to feel in a fucking planetarium, and this delivers on that in a way that not a whole lot else does.
There is a scene towards the end with a storm forming, like a supercell thunderstorm. And I happen to have a fear of storms, but I had to tell myself twice that I was sitting in a movie theater in Nevada. Like, I was scared. I was scared in a way, not like watching a normal movie where you're scared.
Yeah.
But, like, I was fearful in a visceral, evolutionary way, and I'm like sitting there holding the armrests. Like, these are armrests at a movie theater.
Right.
You're not in a storm. Like,
Wow. It's that
so
realistic.
intense.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, like,
There's
and you can't be in a storm. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? You don't sit in storms. But it just felt, I was there. I was in the storm.
There is no way for this to be financially or fiscally possible. But I would
again.
kill for a Christopher Nolan movie
Oh, yeah.
shot for this format, and not like, because this was, first of all, this is a piece of art that is mostly a commercial for the building, right? So it's not like Aronofsky had fucking free reign here, I wouldn't think, to like tell a fucking moving story. And that's the other thing. He's trying to tell something that people of many languages can more or less grok without worrying
There's
about
very little words in it.
talking,
Right.
And yeah, there's some voiceover work that happens, and you would need to have that translated for you if you
which
didn't
you
speak
could
the
do
language.
with their technology, seat by seat. So
Right.
not a problem.
Okay,
But
when you say, by the way, just to be clear,
would-
when you say seat by seat, is it that precise?
no, I don't think it's actually that
they could
precise.
probably do section by section.
But they
Section
could do
by-
section
okay.
by section,
Okay.
I think. But to be able to go see a movie made for this, it would be
That's good.
It would no longer be a movie. It would be something else.
Yeah.
Like in the way that Nolan wants you to go see the movie in IMAX in order to get the best experience of the thing or whatever, for Oppenheimer or for Dunkirk or whatever the fuck. Like, yeah, fine. If I can, I'll go do it. But I can still get the same basic experience watching your film on my thing at home. It would be something else entirely. To have made Interstellar for this format would have been a transformative experience in a way that the movies normally are not.
and then there were old ladies in front of us taking pictures.
Yeah, and then there's.
Do they do any sort of thing at the beginning? Like, hey, don't be taking pictures?
Oh no, they
they
encourage
don't care.
you. They're
Because they want people to come.
they want people to come.
And also they do concerts.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah,
which is
the
like
old ladies taking pictures.
It was impossible to be distracted or annoyed by it because of the vastness and immensity of the thing that's happening in front of you. Like, yes, I was slightly twinged annoyed by the old ladies taking pictures with their fucking phones, but mostly
What are you taking pictures of?
like
What are you
because
doing?
of what's going on in your brain. Like you know by looking at this that whatever picture you're going to take will not convey what's actually happening in any meaningful way. On the content of the film itself,
There we go.
I was so fucking mad at this movie because this is a movie or a story that's being told that essentially it's remember WALL-E? Did you ever see WALL-E?
Yeah.
The Pixar movie WALL-E, where humans destroy Earth and now we just left behind this one trash compactor trying to fucking sort through our garbage, and the humans go off on their yacht in space and drink protein milkshakes and grow fat and obese on their little scooters.
Yeah.
Essentially, we have trashed the planet in such a fashion that we need to build these arcs, and we build these arcs, and we leave the fucking planet to go to the moon. And, of course, the moon is not long-term habitable. And so up there at the moon, we use all of our resources, and we shoot off little spaceships, each with a couple of humans inside, and the technology to terraform various planets around the universe. And go create new civilizations out there. First of all, the utter illogic of having the capability of, with a special piece of technology, being able to go to a barren planet and turn it lush and green and habitable, and let your nouveau Adam and Eve take over and build a future human civilization from scratch, means that you have the same technology that can be applied to the planet Earth and turn it all lush and green. Because if you can do it from nothing, then you can do it from transformed resources that have been turned into plastic and burned oil or what have you. So let's set aside that logical incongruity, right? The politics here are so obnoxious to me because this is a lecture being delivered to us via the single most wasteful and ostentatious piece of entertainment technology that's ever been developed in the history of the species.
In Las Vegas.
Right.
In the heart of the city that
shouldn't exist.
The definition of hubris, of humanity insisting on creating from nothing out of a place that should be barren, this bizarre oasis in the middle of nowhere. I don't get it. I don't get what the ask is of me and of the many tens of thousands of people who, or a couple million people, or however many have seen this movie so far in the last year and 3 months or whatever. What is the ask?
The money, and we gave it to them. So
Could they have done the same? What did you say? 45 minutes, 50 minutes, however long
50
this
minutes,
was.
55 maybe.
Could they basically have shown all the cool stuff, the weather events and the whatever, without having a overarching kind of concept?
Yes, but I think you'd have enough people going like, that was just a bunch of pictures. You know, like, people are dumb. And, like, even if it's a dumb message, at least there's something.
Yeah, at least there's something. But I would
have been happy with just a bunch of fucking pictures.
You would imagine that there would be just as many people who would be, like, turned off by the...
Yeah, but they got all of our money anyway.
I guess it doesn't matter,
What do the filmmakers believe is going to happen on all of the freshly terraformed planets that we have now seeded with human beings who are going to build civilizations?
Build spheres on them.
They are going to do the same thing again.
Right.
The fundamental thing that I can never get past with this insistence that what man is a blight upon nature is, what is man but the end result of nature at this point? I'm sorry. We are as natural as the fucking bacteria and the paramecium and the fucking volcanoes, right? We're just wildly successful at harnessing the resources around us. We are not special. And this is, you have to decide whether or not man is special. And it's funny to me that it's Aronofsky who made Pi, who obviously has some very serious religious hang-ups and guilt associated with a lot of the work that he does. And there's an abiding Judaism and Western-centric guilt at the core of this project here that is obviously inescapable. But I just don't understand the guilt that we seem to carry for being a product of our environment. We are born of this earth. We are as natural as the fucking antelopes. We are no fucking different, right? Yes, we turn the natural resources into chemicals and we burn them and we produce them, we turn them into other things, and it is a blight in some way or another, I suppose. But to me, the pyramids and the skyscrapers and the highways are just as natural.
The spheres.
Yeah, the spheres are just as natural in an important way as the rainforests are, as the fucking Sahara Desert is, as the forests in California are with their majestic, enormous trees. Like, to me, I just don't know why there's this insistence that somehow we are any different than they are. And crucially, again, and I say it every time we have these sorts of conversations, we are the blink of an eye at the end of evolutionary history so far. Right, which means that in 100,000 years, it's all going to be gone, no matter fucking what.
But
right?
I mean,
if the human species lives another 100,000 years on this planet, it will be something of a surprise, and not because of anything that human beings are doing, but just because of the way the cyclical nature of the Earth is, right? There are times when things are relatively calm. We've lived in one of those geologic ages for some time now, and it won't be that way for an extended period of time, much longer in all likelihood. We'll be gone.
I mean, almost certainly we're from here, right? I'm not saying that we're like some alien species.
What, Abe? Say that again? We are. Almost certainly us humans are from this planet.
I can't rule out that the software of us have inhabited the monkey bodies of here, and we're doing whatever. But that's I can't prove it just yet. But we have a lot more capacity to do good and bad than a tiger or whatever or a shark, right? So we can do a lot more good and a lot more harm to the planet, and 100 years from now, even more so, right? So we are different in that respect. We're not just like the other things that are around here. So there is some things that we can do that no one else can on this planet.
Yes, we have mastery of our domain in a way that most of the other animals in the history of the planet's life cycle certainly could ever dream of achieving. That doesn't mean that we are somehow an unnatural end of life on this planet. We are a product of the natural world, not some bizarre alien force on the planet. this is an argument can be made that the fucking oil was here to create human civilization, right? It's silly, obviously, and that's a way of putting a human spin on things that is unlikely to be the case. But I can't get past the fact that yes, perhaps we could choose better. Perhaps we could find a way to waste less. That's all certainly plausible, but also. There are 8 billion people here living in relative, and the vast majority of them living lives of incredible plenty in a way that was not the case just 100 fucking years ago. Right. And I don't know what we're complaining about. What the fuck are we complaining about? We have taken a planet that regularly held a few 100 million people at its absolute peak for thousands of years who lived in total fucking misery from start to finish for the most part.
Now you're speaking my language, Bob. Yeah, the past did suck, yes.
And then about 100 years ago, we started slowly turning things around, and we took those many millions of people and we turned them into 8 billion people. And instead of it being 7.5 billion people living in abject poverty and misery, we have the opposite of that. We have 6.5 or 7 billion people who live by the standards of human life over the course of the last 5,000 years.
Pretty all right.
Incredible lives of plenty. And then us here in this country who get to go to fucking movies and stuff or make movies and stuff, live in constant climate control, right? Where we are utterly unimpacted by the environment around us 99% of the time. We complain because it snows or it rains occasionally and we get slightly inconvenienced by it.
Storms are scary.
Yeah.
But holy shit, this is as good as it fucking gets. And you want to trade that for literally anything else? Are you out of your goddamn mind? This is so good.
Yeah.
What are you complaining about?
Big fan of this planet. Wait, so just to be clear, so at the end, the solution is to fuck off to some other planet and start anew? That's the...
Yeah, they have this magic orb that they just smash into the new planet, and it's Earth now.
Oh, wow.
Anyway,
a fun trip, sounds like.
Definitely go see
to
it.
This fucking sphere.
In summation.
It's so annoying because I don't want to go to Las Vegas again, but I want to go to the sphere again.
Setting aside my complaints about content, the only other thing that I'll complain about is that they occasionally do these mosaics on the screen, and it's not fair or cool because
the screen's too big.
It's too big, and you don't have nearly enough time to take in. I know that the point of a mosaic is mostly its overall impact, and it's not to find each individual portrait or photograph or whatever it is that they're doing. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted more time. I just wanted more time to experience the whole thing. And then also, it was immediately obvious to me that the more dynamic the action that was happening on the screen, the better it was. And there's an awful lot of just sort of be stunned by this still shot of this landscape. And it is stunning, and it is impressive, and its vastness is terrifying and awesome. But it is so much better when either the camera is moving or there are things moving on the screen in front of you.
Moving, fireworks.
The more things that move, the better. And it was almost like they didn't quite figure that out until they were halfway done making the movie.
They're making a new movie for the space, so
yeah,
they'll know.
Anyway, it's an absolute must if you are going to Vegas and you have the opportunity to do so. And I imagine it's a tremendous concert venue as well.
Yeah, it's annoying. I want to see a
because
show there now.
We were in the second deck, and because the first deck is not open for the movie as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think I heard the usher say they only do the bottom floor for concerts.
Okay.
But where we were was, even though this place is enormous, you can see where a band would have been performing, and awesome seats from even way up high, I think. Definitely a cool place to see a show. But yeah, fucking incredible.
Is this one of those tickets you need to get in advance, or can it be had the week of?
To pick your seat.
To pick your seat, yes. I think the seats could be had, generally speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our Vegas trip. There's plenty more to talk about, but I'm sure that was more than enough. Let's open up quickly the WGAS NewsBag, because it has been an absurd...
it's spilling out everywhere. Jesus Christ.
An absurd 2 weeks. When it's been as long as it's been, it's hard to get a handle on any of it because so much has been going on. And the cliche way to talk about it is, of course, that this is purposeful, that this is a fire hose of new stuff every single day from the Trump administration. And I think it certainly is, right? Like their plan was to come in with shock and awe, and shock and awe they certainly have.
Hit the ground running.
Provided.
Yeah.
And if you pay attention to the news at all, do you really need to hear us talk about the American Airlines Black Hawk crash that happened in D.C.? I don't think so. Right. I'm sure that you've gotten...
We don't have anything to say about it.
Just in terms of Trump's immediate reaction to it.
He looks great. I hope he doesn't get the flu.
I know I shouldn't be, and I should be even beyond saying the following, which is I'm surprised that I'm still surprised by how sort of depraved he can be in moments of what should be fairly simple opportunity to display humanity and normalcy, and instead he takes every opportunity to show off how fucking depraved he is. And it is punishing, not in his display of wanton depravity, but in enduring a fully half of the American public being excited or appreciative of his wanton depravity. How are we still in this position where the President of the United States can, the morning after an air disaster that kills
67 total
people?
Yeah, 64 plus 3.
For him to get in front of the microphone the next morning and blame it on diversity. After pausing for a moment of quiet reflection, right. He comes out of the moment of quiet reflection and says that it is his common sense that tells him that this is DEI's fault, which was his way of revealing that he knew that that he knew something that we did not know at that point, which is that the pilots of one or both of these aircraft were not white males. Right, that was I know that the conversation immediately after it was very much like, but sir, you don't have any evidence. How can you possibly assert without evidence that this was the result of DEI policies? It's like, you fucking dumbasses, because he's the president of the United States and he knows who died, and it means that either the person flying the helicopter was black or a woman, or the person flying the plane was black or a woman. Right. That's all he needs to know to say that this is the result of DEI policies, which is, by the way, a fucking morally depraved way to frame the conversation in the immediate aftermath of it. right? Like and because yes, he doesn't have evidence of DEI, but he knew the fucking flight manifest before anybody else did.
Yeah.
He knew the score here, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he said that this was about DEI, because he knew that there was a woman who was flying this fucking helicopter.
But was she the only? I'm confused about. Were there not two other people?
Yes.
On the fucking helicopter that could have said, "Hey, look, plane."
Yeah, I don't even know how people
works?
fly those helicopters, and because when you see the video footage, it seems like it's going right into the plane.
It looks like.
Yeah, it's like, hey, there's a plane right there, and there was like some sort of communication saying that, hey, do you see that plane? And they're like, yeah, we got it, and then like they didn't get it. So it's kind of weird. But to the blame game, like I don't want to get inside the mind of Trump, but I don't think he thinks of things as depraved or not. I don't think that's a consideration. To him, it's just like, I want to make sure that I'm not going to get the blame, so I'm going to dump this to somebody else or to something else, to some other factor, right? So because right now it's the military, right? Because they were the ones. I mean, it wasn't the plane. The plane is trying to land at the airport. So this military exercise gone awry. So that's under his watch, right? So it can't be my fault. It's got to be somebody else's fault. What? Oh, they're giving me this briefing. What's that? A woman? One of them was a woman? Okay, good. Boom. That's the problem. And then I'm going to say that, and that's going to start a big back and forth, and people will get distracted, and nobody's going to talk about what responsibility my Department of Defense played in this or anything like that. It'll just be somebody else's fault. And that's the primary objective. It's somebody else's fault. That's the main thing, the takeaway. It's not my fault.
I'm not suggesting that he knows that he's being depraved or doesn't know that he's being depraved. I'm simply saying it is a depraved act to blame it on diversity for the 67 dead people here. Again, evidence or not, the evidence, the only evidence that he needs for that is that there was a woman flying that fucking helicopter. And to say nothing of the fact that, like, in the aftermath of this, like, why, when the president says, see, this is what you get with DEI, and he's not just talking about the helicopter pilot, he's not just talking about the air traffic control system, although he's also talking about that. He's also talking about the pilots for the American Airlines, right? Because the DEI culture extends both. It's a problem in the FAA, it's a problem in the military, and it's a problem in corporate America, according to Trump. This is a symptom of our entire culture, according to these people. Why would it be safe to get on an airplane tomorrow? Or like, if this diagnosis is at all correct, why is anybody getting into a fucking plane anymore? Are you out of your goddamn mind? If you believe in anything that Trump has said here about the DEI regime, clearly our entire flying infrastructure is at risk.
Very lucky we made it home.
Yeah, and also is the idea now that anyone who is not a white male is to be met with some suspicion, like perhaps.
Of course,
Yes.
That's what I mean by
That's the whole point.
It's also depraved in that fashion, right? That you cannot that there's a fully half of the American public who will now look with suspicion and derision upon any minority person in a position of prominence, and one wonders to some extent how the constant harping on identity by Democrats has also made that a reality, right? That, like, it's not just the reactionaries' fault here. That it is this cultural obsession that we have with identity. That, and I don't care how many times the fancy people get on television and they say there's no evidence of quotas and DEI is just about getting the best possible candidates into the best possible positions. And it's like, that's not believable based on the way that you've talked about this through the years. It's simply not. And you can look no further than the different standards for different racial groups at elite universities to know that that's not the case. You can look the Harvard case with the Asians from a couple of years ago, right? Like these people were being denied admission with higher grades because they wanted to get a different class of people in there, which is fine. It is admirable in its own way. But then you don't get to turn around and say the only thing that DEI is about getting the absolute best and brightest into the prominent positions of power and influence in this country. Because it's not. That is not no one believes that is what the project is about. It's, again, so thoroughly fucking dispiriting a conversation to have when the actual conversation should be about the fact that if there's an investigation here that reveals problems with air traffic control, do you think it's going to be about the racial makeup of the tower that night, or do you think it's going to be about the fact that there's something like a third short of the number of air traffic controllers that we're supposed to have in this country? We're supposed to have 14,000, and we only have fewer than 11,000 on the payroll at the FAA. So we're missing in excess of 3,000 air traffic controllers. So these people have to work 60, 70-hour weeks, week after week, so they're not rested.
Watched Breaking Bad.
It's just, It takes 6 months to figure this fucking shit out. We don't have easy answers here. There should be no easy answers. There should be no speculation about the reasons.
I don't know why I'm not more upset about this, and maybe it's because I got sick. But this reminds me so much of the building that fell down out of nowhere in Miami.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that condo that just fell down.
Things are fucked up.
Yeah.
Sometimes buildings just fall down.
Also,
sometimes a helicopter runs into an airplane a minute before it lands. Not get over it, but this is not normal, but it's also not that shocking.
Right. Although
we have a lot of things that are held up by toothpicks.
It's not that shocking in a world that doesn't work the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
In a world that is dysfunctional, and not because of fucking some
it's not
imaginary
for any one reason.
DEI regime, but it's because the world is held together with toothpicks and duct tape, because we don't fucking care to do things right? Because we
it's just what it is sometimes. I feel so callous going yeah, well, sometimes planes crash. Because I know that they don't, but buildings don't just collapse out of nowhere either. But yeah, they do sometimes.
Right. There's been a lack of.
It's nice that most of the time they don't.
Yeah. There's been a lack of investment in infrastructure. There was a bridge collapse many years ago. I think in Minnesota or whatever.
Bridges. Well, there was that one that the boat ran into.
Yeah, the boat ran into. Oh,
in Maryland.
But
sometimes boats run into bridges and the bridge falls down. Sorry, this is the world. You don't have to blame anyone.
Yeah, with the
bullshit. You are so completely wrong about this. It should not ever be the case that an Army helicopter flies into a fucking 737.
I'm not saying it should. I'm saying that
is the world.
This happens
in modern advanced civil society. That is not something that happens. That happens in some runway in Libya. Fine, that's weird, but this is the United States of America. We don't have fucking Black Hawk helicopters taking out passenger planes.
Also, this is I don't know if they changed the story, but it was a military exercise. It seems I don't know, trying to get VIP people out of harm's way or whatever. I forget what the point of that the Black Hawks going back and forth, but for many, many months, and maybe going back years, there were all these close calls, and it was eventually it wasn't going to be so close. Eventually, because this could have been another close call where at the last minute the helicopter went up or down or whatever and missed it by a few hundred.
I think we had a conversation about a rash of stories about close calls in which I got feisty about this story about close calls. What are you talking about? We need to be freaking out about close calls. No, we don't. This was a successful implementation of the air traffic control system where 2 planes didn't actually explode in midair because they knew what the fuck was going on. And maybe I was too cavalier in my dismissal of the concerns.
The problem with some of those close calls, as I remember, was that it was by chance that an accident did not happen. Basically, all of the procedures, there was a failure there, but by chance or by luck or somebody looked and they were or the weather was just right. Basically, this could have been a disaster were it not for something that you shouldn't rely on. And this happened in the evening, and maybe in the daytime they would have. I don't know how helicopters work, so I'm not going to pretend to know. Because to me, I'm thinking, why not just look out and say, hey, what's this? A plane. And also, why are you flying right where they're landing? That's a busy kind of
Apparently, that's just where they go.
Well, no, they were higher than they are permitted to be. They're supposed to have like a 200-foot
But in general, Reagan has tons of helicopters there.
Yeah.
Right. The point there, at no point is it within the training manual of the Black Hawk asshole to fly through the potential airspace of the commercial airliner. They're supposed to fly under it at the very worst.
Right.
And they're probably not supposed to be there when the airplane is literally right overhead.
Yeah, that's what's weird about it. I mean, imagine, what were there, a bunch of like figure skating people on that flight? I mean, you're almost home. You're like, hey, look at that. I can see the monuments or whatever. Like, I'm home. And what's this?
They were a minute from landing.
Yeah.
It's an unimaginable nightmare.
It's awful.
And the president then turns around the next morning and blames it on the woman who was flying the helicopter because women shouldn't be doing such things.
He probably thinks of that gambit as a success because, let's say he just offers his thoughts and prayers, or like he's like a normal, conventional president, like with some semblance of like care, right? Or at least that's the projection, right? Then people are like, oh, like you said, there's a shortage of traffic controllers, or a lot of the stuff is going to be what's going on with, he could probably pin it on the previous administration, but like you open your new administration with gutting different areas. So people are going to start like, well, maybe we need those people there. Maybe you shouldn't be cutting so drastically. So like a lot of the blame will be shifted in his direction. So like it's that lizard brain again. Like, let me get ahead of this and pin this on somebody else.
I was reminded, I don't know how long ago it was. I feel like it was within the last 2 years, but it might have been longer ago. It's like a pop quiz hotshot. Julia sent me an article from Washington Post about some congressmen and senators complaining that there weren't enough flights out of Reagan to their hometowns, that it was inconvenient for them to have to go all the way out to Dulles to fly home on the weekends. And the airport was like, we're a small airport. What do you want from us? And they're like, I want a flight to Missoula direct. Like,
oh, I see. Yeah.
So there's some blame placed.
Right.
Well, the senator from Kansas is quoted as in his reaction to this as saying, I personally lobbied for this flight to be opened. Right.
Yep.
They've added 5 or 10 flights just in the last year to National that were previously not there, despite an already overpacked schedule there. And yeah, to some extent, that certainly plays a role.
Dulles
one has
is
to imagine.
45 minutes away.
So like so it doesn't like make exact economic sense for them to fly out of there, but because some senator wants it, like they're like, well, we'll throw you a bone.
It's inconvenient for them to have to drive 45 minutes.
It's not that it doesn't make economic sense. It's that they want more flights in and out of the nation's capital. The flights fill up. There were 60 odd people on this flight. Like there's money. It's not a question of money. It's a question of how busy. What is the actual safe capacity of the airport itself? And it is. People have been saying for years it is considerably lower than where they are currently operating. Anyway, it's certainly one would imagine it's an opportunity for some other regional airports to expand offerings, but yeah.
Are you talking about Charlottesville?
As you're saying, people don't like having to commute 2 hours after they've either just arrived or are trying to leave the city. All right, the rather sudden turn that happened in our conversation about this American Airlines crash, Trump was able to pivot away from any fallout related to that when he welcomed Bibi Netanyahu into the White House, the first foreign leader to visit Trump in his second term is the Israeli prime minister. Netanyahu has been fucking part of Israeli politics for basically as long as we've been conscious of such things, and even before that, really. Netanyahu shows up, and Trump makes an incredible bit of news yesterday by insisting that he wants to empty Gaza of all of its residents and turn it into the Riviera. I think he wants
Las Vegas Strip, Gaza Strip, Las Vegas Strip.
And rebuild it and make it more beautiful than ever. He wouldn't understand why people would want to live there now. It's a destroyed mess. It's a hellhole. and they should all go live somewhere else for the time being, while they rebuild it into a beautiful resort town there in the desert. And then maybe, as was clarified by Rubio today, they could come back maybe in a decade or so, 15 years, after all of the infrastructure has been restored. This was taken quite seriously by everyone, because Trump seemed to be quite serious about it. He said that we were going to take an ownership stake in the Gaza Strip. Abe, what does ownership, when the head of a country says that they're going to take an ownership stake in a plot of land, usually that would involve the spending of resources,
yes.
money, for example,
right.
or military might,
right.
one way or the other,
right?
That's what an ownership. But somehow, apparently, Trump wants to take an ownership stake in the Gaza Strip without spending any United States money and without deploying any United States troops.
Yeah. Which is
how does that work?
I don't know
exactly?
I want things.
I don't know how that works, and also this is just a bizarre series of land that Trump wants to acquire by vague means, like Greenland, the Panama Canal, Canada, now Gaza. This whole time about this two-state solution, and now it's going to be a United States solution. I don't understand what he meant, because all of today has been spent trying to walk back or clarify the words Trump used the day before. But I don't know how else you can interpret going to assume responsibility or ownership of the place without doing just that. Defending that property with the military. I don't know how else it could work. I don't know what is meant by the words he used.
I have said on the podcast before that we should take New Mexico or large portions of the American West that are mostly empty, as you would know if you fly across the country or drive across the country, just huge empty tracts of land out there, and just make Israel there, right? Just let the Jews have their own state within the United States. And it would be we solve the Middle East problem by saying, look, Jews, move to America. You can have your fucking kibbutz. It can suck. It can suck as much as you want it to suck. You have the hard life in the desert, right? It's fine. Do it. Or you could move to a city and it would be even better. But if you want the hard life in the desert, we can provide that for you. And no irrationally pissed off millenarian neighbors who are hoping to end you for the purposes of satisfying their bloodthirsty God, right? Fucking bonus,
Yeah.
right?
Unless your plan involves the Palestinians moving in the town next over.
Right. Which it does not.
Yeah.
The Palestinians
You can
are
go to the next state.
fine there. I say that on the podcast, it's an absurdity. It is no more or less absurd than Trump's plan to depopulate Gaza for the next 15 years so that the United States can take an ownership stake in what's going on there. But his idea is treated as though it were potential United States policy moving forward.
I know, but that's to be understood, right? If the president says something, that carries some weight, right? If the president says a thing, especially something very out of left field like this, wait, what? What are you talking about? And also depopulating. There's other terms for that. What are you trying to do there? You trying to cleanse the region somehow? What's the thinking?
It is so directly. It's such a sop to everyone who said that this was a genocide.
Right.
It's like yeah, all right. If you're gonna call it a genocide,
Not a better word for it, really.
Might as well get something out of it.
Right.
If we're gonna accuse us of doing ethnic cleansing, I guess we might as well fucking do it. It's no, don't. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
Also, where the fuck are they gonna go?
Well, what was the idea? Egypt and Jordan would welcome them?
There's a reason that they've been in the Gaza Strip for the last 20 fucking years. Right. It's because Egypt built a wall and said, you can't come over here. And Jordan said, we don't want any more of you.
Right. There were some problems with because there have been some Palestinians that have lived in Jordan, but there's been some issues, internal strife over the years.
Yeah. I don't know why such things were taken as seriously as they were by as many outlets as they were, as though this represented some new turn in American foreign policy moving forward. It was so funny to watch Bibi sitting there in the chair next to Trump as Trump is going on this riff, and Bibi's just got this half smile on his face. Like, can you believe this fucking guy? And he's like, he must know that like whatever he's saying here is just an absurdity, obviously. But also, in some weird way, it's probably close to something that Bibi would have wanted him to say, which is that Bibi wants to foreclose on the possibility of having to pay lip service to the two-state solution, right, at least in anything like the short term, right? Like it is no longer plausible to imagine at some point in the next decade Israel getting behind a push for a two-state solution. It's simply not in the cards anytime soon.
Yep. Yeah.
You could put it on the back burner. You could promise Saudi Arabia in hopes of normalizing relations with the House of Saud. You could say, yes, long-term speaking, there needs to be a permanent home for the Palestinians that is not Egypt or Jordan, but is in fact their own state.
Or New Mexico.
No, don't confuse things here. I'm not offering New Mexico to the Palestinians. I'm like
anymore.
I'm like the king of Jordan. I know what the fuck's going on with these people. They're not to be trusted. But Bibi had to know, like, yes, while Trump is sort of saying something that is to my benefit politically, which is identifying the cold, hard truth of the matter, which is that we cannot have, like, a two-state solution is no longer, after October 7th and after the last 18 months since then, is no longer a viable piece of diplomacy that we can work towards on the short term. He must have also in that moment just been like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Because it's unlike any statement that you can imagine coming out of the mouth of an American president in our entire lives. But anyway, it was at least, because it felt like yesterday and last night, it felt like everybody was taking it quite literally and seriously, and I felt like I was losing my fucking mind. Like, what do you, like, I'm sorry, but, like, Jared Kushner is going to develop like 18 city square blocks or something in Gaza and turn it into this fucking second Mecca there in the Middle East. It's going to be some new UAE, Dubai type situation there on the coast. Like, are you out of your, like, this isn't happening. What the fuck are you talking about paying this serious lip service? And then today it was very much like, oh no, that was crazy, and the entire and Rubio and the rest of the U.S. the responsible U.S. people were like, no, that's not what he meant really.
Yeah.
Something else that is annoying to me personally was that about this time last night, I got like a wall of text from the PTO ladies group chat.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Talking about,
it really was like this time last night. It was bedtime.
Wow. Yeah.
Concerns about the shuttering of the Department of Education. And
what can we do?
What are our options here and this sort of thing?
Turn off the fucking news. Get off your phone. Download a nice game.
I did not respond as I wanted to, which was to say, we don't have any options. What are you talking about? But I was amused later today because, of course, there was the reason that the concern was about the closing of the Department of Education is that Trump is going to have Linda McMahon there running things, and he's said that her job is to put herself out of a job, that he wants to shutter the Department of Education. And the main thing that the Department of Education does, of course, is they handle student loans primarily. It's their main job. They distribute Title I funds, which are for low-income areas, and they distribute special education funding, about $18 billion and $15 billion each, so less than USAID, which is something else that was in the news this week, which apparently has a budget of like $50 billion a year or something like that. Department of Education, the main chunk of the money that they distribute to states is done in the form of this $18 billion of Title I and $15 billion of special ed. The vast majority of spending on schools is done at the state level and at the local level. It's just the case. It's a small amount, relatively speaking, but a very important amount if you happen to be in a Title I area where your school relies upon this extra funding from the federal government to help the poors around you. And certainly, if you're someone with a special needs child, then the special ed funding plays a rather prominent role in your life as well. That being said, Trump wants to dismantle the Department of Education. My response to it in the moment was more or less to say he can't. It doesn't matter that he's going to write this executive order at some point in the next couple of weeks to say, I demand or would really much prefer an end to the Department of Education because this would require an act of Congress. And the simple fact of the matter is there is not the political will in Congress to eliminate the Department of Education, which, again, doesn't write curriculum for our nation's schools. That is done at the state and local level. So for all of their complaints about whatever it is that they imagine the Department of Education does, it's not deciding what is taught in our nation's schools. It's a weird lie that someone has made up and convinced a lot of people of. It is mostly just getting more federal money to those who are most in need. And do you know what's really popular? Is when the federal government turns over some money to your local school district, right? Like that's the sort of thing that Congress actually really likes. And they can say they can go on their Fox News and make all of the noises about it, but they're not going to end the Department of Education. And even if they did, even if they somehow found the political will to do that, the $35 billion that the Department of Education distributes every year would be moved into labor or health and human services or something, and those distributions would continue apace. Like, I don't know what it is that we're so terrified of. And then I see this today from the Washington Post. The Trump administration does not intend to pay for the reconstruction of Gaza, nor has it made any commitment to sending U.S. troops there, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said Wednesday, offering clarifying details a day after Donald Trump vowed to take over the territory and rebuild it. Clearly, the clarifying details are in direct, stark opposition to the words that came out of Donald Trump's mouth just the day before. Meanwhile, Trump plans to sign an executive order Wednesday that seeks to ban transgender athletes from competing in women's and girls' school-sponsored athletics by denying federal funds to schools that allow it, White House officials said. The key clause there being, the final one, by denying federal funds to schools that allow it. Right. And this speaks directly to why he wants tariffs, and it speaks to why the Department of Education is not going anywhere in a way that will impact in a way that will have the negative impact that my fellow PTO ladies are so concerned about, because the federal funds are the whip in the hand of Donald Trump. And ending the Department of Education and eliminating Title I funding and getting rid of special education funding means they no longer have any say in what goes on at the local school level. And for all of the fucking complaints that the Republicans have about federal control of education that they're saying on the one hand, on the other, literally the next day, after he's talking about how he wants McMahon to put herself out of a job, and at some point in the next 2 weeks, he's going to issue this executive order that says, I want the Department of Education ended. At the same time that he's insisting on that, he's going to say, but I won't give these schools any money if they let girls play boys soccer. Right, or boys play girls soccer. Right. Which is it? Yeah. Those are incompatible things that you have going on there, Donald. And the reality is that we don't have to worry so much about your threats about withholding or about ending federal programs because the main source of lever of power that you have over the schools is that money. So do Republicans care about federal influence on what's going on inside schools, or don't they? Because according to this latest from the White House, it seems like they very much still do.
Right. And if you look at it from a carrot and stick kind of framing, as you say, a lot of these decisions are made at the local and state level, so there aren't any sticks that Trump can use to make sure people comply with whatever he wants. There are, however, carrots he can withhold in the form of funding, and so that would be the one avenue you would pursue, like do this, or I'm going to withhold X amount of money that comes your way, and so like you wouldn't want to get rid of those carrots because then you have neither carrot nor stick.
Right. And the reason that I say that it's much like the tariffs conversation is because, well, and first of all, and this will go quickly since we're running out of time here, but the fact that he was going to impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and I'm sure I've heard the point made a couple of times, but it needs to be driven home in every single conversation about tariffs, and it hasn't been. Donald Trump renegotiated NAFTA fucking 5 years ago, right?
What was it called? USCMA or like they
USMCA, something like that.
US, Mexico, Canada, right? Even though NAFTA too would have worked, but I guess he didn't like the brand NAFTA. Right.
USMCA was the renegotiated NAFTA, and Joe Biden didn't change any of that. That was it was signed into law by Donald Trump, and it is the current trade agreement under which the United States is operating with its two closest neighbors. And Donald Trump then comes in fucking in this second term and is like, oh no, we're getting screwed by this deal. It's like, what deal is that, Donald? Specifically, what deal are you referring to? So it's one thing to be the United States, and you can no longer, our allies and enemies can no longer rely upon the good word of the United States, because from administration to administration, the posture of the United States around the world changes so goddamn dramatically, right?
Yeah.
It's something else entirely when you can't even rely upon the guy that you just made the fucking deal with to stick with the deal that he said was transformative and made everything better fucking 5 years ago.
And in the case of Canada, with the same prime minister, sometimes, I think the Mexico president was different, but like this is the same government you dealt with the first go around.
Right. So, but setting aside that obvious fucking incongruity, which again doesn't get mentioned nearly enough. Like, why doesn't every single news story say, wait, so why are we doing this? Didn't he fix this last time? This same fucking guy, he's the one who put this regime in place. What's the fucking problem here? Leaving that aside, the reason that tariffs are fucking bogus is because of all of the exemptions that the federal government then gets to hand out to anybody who comes and knocks on the door and pays them a bribe, essentially, right? Like the reason that the tariff regimes don't actually bring in all of the money that they insist that they will is because fucking Alcoa or whoever comes knocking on the door and says, hey, we're going to need an exemption here because in order to make American aluminum, we got to import this such and such steel or coal or whatever the fuck from China or from Mexico or from whatever. And like, this doesn't work for us. So you're just going to raise the price of American steel and American aluminum by putting these tariffs on these other countries. So we're going to need an exemption here. And all of a sudden, it's just a bunch of lobbyists going in and getting carve-outs and special treatment. And the impact of the tariff is relatively negligible, except on the consumer, because ultimately who ends up paying for these fucking things in the end anyway is the goddamn consumer. It's a very frustrating thing. I wanted to play a quick clip from the CBS Evening News this Monday. I've made a commitment. I'm going to watch the CBS Evening News because it now features my boy John Dickerson.
Right. Although not by himself.
Not by himself. He's co-hosting with what's the guy's name?
Why you got to say it like that, Abe?
Because it's not the same prestige when you're the
You said
you're
it
the main.
features him. And you're like, well, not just him. Other ones.
Look here now, Abe. We had Norah O'Donnell. You think one man can fill the considerable shoes of Norah O'Donnell? I, as a strong feminist, recognize that it takes two seasoned journalists with penises to fill the role of a single.
Stop with the filling with the penises.
Norah
That's enough.
O'Donnell. I'm quite aroused.
Kelly O'Grady. So, Kelly, let's take a stroll here through the economic case that Donald Trump is making for slapping tariffs.
Okay, so a big driver is getting better trade relationships. So let's look at some numbers. It's 2023. The U.S. sells $354 billion in goods to Canada, $323 billion to Mexico. That same year, though, they bought $419 billion from Canada and $475 billion from Mexico. So that means there's a trade deficit of $64 billion with Canada and $153 billion with Mexico.
And you definitely don't want to be on the short end of a trade deficit.
No, economically, you want them to rely on you versus you relying on them.
Okay.
I am not an economist, but the United States is way, way bigger in terms of the population, in terms of the size of the economy, in terms of land mass, in the case of Mexico, certainly. In any meaningful way, we dwarf those other two countries.
Yes.
And these two people, I'm going to play it again.
So let's look at some numbers. It's 2023. The U.S. sells $354 billion in goods to Canada, $323 billion to Mexico. That same year, though, they bought $419 billion from Canada and $475 billion from Mexico. So that means there's a trade deficit of $64 billion with Canada and $153 billion with Mexico.
And you definitely don't want to be on the short end of a trade deficit.
No, economically, you want them to rely on you versus you relying on them.
Okay.
They are stating, without qualification, that it is bad to be on the wrong side of a deficit surplus situation when it comes to trade with other countries. That is not true. It would be kind of crazy for the United States to be in a trade surplus with Canada, which only has 30 million people, right? We have 350 million people.
Yeah, California
Canada
had more people than the whole of Canada, or almost.
Right. Why would we expect to be in a trade surplus with Canada? Is there that much maple syrup?
There's a whole lot.
What the fuck are they talking about? Why is CBS giving us this framing on this conversation instead of giving us something closer to the truth, which is that a trade deficit can in fact be the sign of a very strong local economy, right? Suggestive of high consumer demand, suggestive of an ability of the local population to spend money, which is what you want in a consumer-driven economy. What the fuck are they talking about? Giving into Trump's
They've had
framing
a rough couple weeks.
in the first 5 minutes of the first CBS Evening News that I'm watching. I'm already screaming at the fucking television, being like, why do I know more about Econ 101 than these two idiots are saying to me at the moment?
To be fair, the co-anchor is not an economist. He's just passing it off to the lady who is saying this.
The Money Watch lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, she said something else in consecutive fucking
That's
broadcasts.
that DEI again.
that pissed me off. It's not inherently bad to have a trade deficit with a much smaller nation. Right. It is, in fact, a sign of strength to have a trade deficit with a much smaller. Now, maybe you can certainly make an argument that our trading situation with China isn't terribly equitable and not ideal in terms of that deficit versus surplus situation. But in terms of Canada and in terms of Mexico, I do not understand what it is they imagine that we want to be happening here. We want to be such a strong economy that we are buying an excess number of goods from our Canadian and Mexican neighbors rather than the other way around. And I don't think there's much controversy about it. And playing it into Trump's idea of this somehow being unfair or being automatically bad for us speaks to something else that I don't understand about the way Donald Trump continues to insist on framing our world around us, which is that it seems to be the case that Donald Trump's understanding of the world since the end of World War II, but especially since the end of the Cold War, is that America has gotten cheated on the world stage.
And it's a really hard time for white guys. Which
to me is among the most totally inexplicable statements that you can make about the world if you've lived in the world since the end of World War II. And you need look. I mean, again, I was talking earlier about the way that since 1800 we've pulled like 98% of people lived in abject poverty fucking 300 years ago, right? Like everybody did. And then go back to 1900, and it's like, okay, only 90% of the world's population lives in abject poverty now. And you go back to 1950, and like half of Americans lived in something like abject poverty at the end of World War II, right? And then since then, things have been fucking amazing. Yes. Right? We've achieved at a level that is inconceivable in the whole of human history. And this fucking asshole looks around and is like, boy, things are really unfair to us.
It's real tough for white guys, Bob.
I don't
know.
It's not just like, I know that's the fine. White guy thing is fine and funny. But like, he wouldn't frame it in terms of the white guy thing. He would just frame it in terms of how unfairly America has been treated since 1950 and since 1989, since the end of the Cold War. Like, but in what plausible world is he living in that's the case? Things have only gotten better, not just for us, but for every other, basically every other population that you can subdivide on the surface of the planet. Right? The rising tide of America and the rising tide of the West has lifted all boats in ways that are fucking unthinkable in all of human history. And why he continues to insist that every single way that America interacts with the world around us, we're somehow getting the short end of the stick is utterly mystifying.
The reason is I think pretty clear. There are a limited number of stories that people gravitate towards, and you see this with sports also. Like, despite the fact that we are living in the golden age of humans that I've been saying for some time here, people need contrast, right? So like, if you're trying to win office, you have to say, sucked when I wasn't here, great with me here, right? So basically like, oh yeah, and so point to all the bad things, and then like, I'm going to do all the good things, right? So you have to make some sort of story to where that makes sense. Same thing with sports. Doesn't matter how dominant the team is. What do the coaches tell their guys? Oh, no one thinks you can do it. All the people think you suck. Like bullshit stories that aren't true, just to kind of get people to rile up and perform better. So like, there are a limited number of stories that people tell each other to make sense of the world, and one of them is things bad, things can be good. Like you have to say things are bad. Because, you know, if you feel some kind of way, like if you lost your job or maybe you're not doing what you want, if somebody tells you things suck and the reason is because of A, B, and C, you'll say, oh, yeah, that tracks with my emotional experience of the world, and I'm going to make it better if you join my cause. So, like, I think it's done for that reason, not because of some objective truth.
The amount of leisure time that we have in this country compared to the amount of leisure time that Donald Trump experienced as a one percenter in when he was born is it's unimaginable, right? Like we've seen a steady rise in the amount of if you just measure it by nothing but that, the average amount of leisure time experienced by the average American since 1950 and really since the 1960s has been on a steady increase for as long as anyone who is alive can remember. Right? Like it is an incontrovertible truth that life is easier and better for everyone now than it was before.
But it's important that people recognize that, though, because you also see disease.
It's important that we have leaders that fucking reinforce it, who talk about how fucking amazing it is that we've gotten to this
but you have
point
this,
in human development.
What is it called? Disease of despair. People shooting up. All of these mental health numbers going in the wrong way. Like, people don't seem to appreciate.
We have too much leisure time as well.
All of this leisure time, yeah. And all of this, good times and air conditioning and easy living.
Don't you blame air conditioning.
People are not appreciating what's there because I guess there's no perspective either, right? No one's thinking about 1950. Mississippi and how like people were shitting out in the back and they had like no
Too hot.
Yeah, so like no one's actually doing that math, and so yeah, you're right. Maybe responsible leaders could maybe do that, but they have their own objectives, which is to win office.
I recognize that the human condition is one in which we are going to adjust our baseline so that misery means something very much different for us than it meant before, right? Like we will always find our fucking misery. And I recognize that. That is, believe me, of everybody.
Even in a utopia, right? Like there'll be some sort of like, I don't know.
Right. I am as adept at finding misery in the situation as anyone that you can fucking imagine. No doubt, right? But also, I think that it is fundamentally insane to insist that even granting the opioid crisis and the loneliness crisis that we experience in this country and all of this stuff, it is insane to suggest that we have been treated by the world or by God or by anyone else in a way that is unfair relative to anyone else. Just go look at the standard of living in Western Europe. It's not as good as it is here. Right. Western Europe, where they sit around all day and eat lunch, apparently, right? They just drink wine and they eat the lunch all the time and they have fucking siestas.
They don't have as much air conditioning as we have.
Right. Our lives are measurably better than even our co-Westerners there in Western Europe. And that's to say nothing of the rest of the world, right? Like, what are you talking about that things haven't been fair to the United States? And it's just so increasingly absurd. And then to have CBS say, well, you definitely don't want to have a trade deficit with Canada. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You think we're being mistreated by the Canadians because we buy more shit from them than they buy from us? There's only fucking 14 of them. What are you talking about?
Although they're starting to boo the national anthem. Have you seen that at hockey games?
Yeah. Well, good for them. I'm going to fucking start booing the
Boo
national
earns.
anthem. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. We have pushed my voice to the breaking point at this point.
Yeah, we did that.
That's what we did. Check out the Substack for more from us. As I said, I'm in the process, I believe, of finally putting a bow on my first episode of the Philip K. Dick podcast, so maybe that'll be coming soon. I have to decide if I want to convince Abe to record a supplemental aspect of that show where I make Abe talk about science fiction stories with me, or not.
That should be fun.
But first, I got to finish the main part of the show. Tetramermusic.com, TETRAMERmusic.com for more from Mark Gillig, who composed our opening and closing themes. Abe, it's been a couple of weeks. What movies have you been to see?
So I watched a lot of movies in the last couple of weeks, so I'm just going to focus just on a couple that are worthy of mention. One of them is Mel Gibson's Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
It's got some intense trailers that I've been seeing on the television. Mark with the bald cap is not convincing. The bald.
So I'm sure by now I think the last time we were on this a couple weeks ago, the last episode, I mentioned Jon Voight was getting disrespected by the Razzies by being nominated for 4 different films in one year. I assume that with the announcement of those actors that the window has closed, but I would ask for the Razzies to extend their window a little further to include Flight Risk, because it's in this weird period where it'll be forgotten by next year.
Right.
But they need to include it in this year, because my God, what a performance by Mark Wahlberg. He is very limited in acting. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Like, I mean, he can do a few things, but he's not like a great actor. And I'm sure he would admit himself that he's not. He hams it up to such a degree that it is just laughable. Like you're laughing at him. I mean, he's not a serious character, but even with that, it's just over the top. Like, what are you doing? I've never heard so much laughter at moments where it wasn't set for it. You know, people were just laughing. I mean, just the audience literally laughing out loud.
It looks like a thoroughly deranged but also entertaining movie. Is it not? Does it not at least give you a good couple of hours?
It is a entertaining movie in a disastrous way. I mean, none of it makes sense. I mean, there are moments where, like, he's just behaving in this unhinged, like, oh, this is definitely a Mel Gibson note. You know, like, hey, like, can we do this take again? But, like, crazier. Right. Like, everybody's behaving.
Give me the crazy take. We won't use the crazy take, but just give me one fully fucking bonkers.
And then it's all the crazy takes put together. And even like the actress from like Downton Abbey, she's doing like Mel Gibson crazy eyes. Everything about this. I mean, there are only like 4 characters in this whole movie, but everybody's behaving like an extension of Mel Gibson, or at least that's how I read it. And there would be like moments where, like, there's somebody that's trying to explain to, what's her face, Michelle Dockery, I think is the actress, how to land the plane, because she's just like a, I don't know, like a marshal or something. She's like a law enforcement person. She's not a pilot. The pilot gets killed.
She's a woman, so.
So somebody's like guiding her down, and to calm her nerves, he's like hitting on her, and it's very clumsily done to like take her mind off the fact that you may crash this plane.
Hey, that's what women want.
Well, that was the other thing I forgot to mention about Vegas.
Mel Gibson knows what women want.
That was the other thing I forgot to mention about Vegas. It was nice because I was with Bob.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no one's hitting on me or looking at me gross and lecherously like usual. Maybe it's because there are so many distractions and other things to look at 1 minute away from him. And it was just immediate.
Oh, really?
It's like, wow, guys, great job. Great job.
They see the domineering Bob, they're like, oh, we don't want those problems. And then as soon as he's gone.
You joke, but like, I'm an imposing figure next to Lori especially.
I'm very small. Yeah. And I think the smallness makes me more of a target. You know, it's just like a hyena thing.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to attack anything smaller or bigger than them. But yeah, I was like, I'm going to run up to the hotel room and then come back. And it was just, I'm walking away from him.
She's going through the casino floor, just sucking dicks.
Yeah.
Everywhere. She's just dicks here, dicks there.
Wearing like a coat. Like it's not like I'm dressed provocatively. Like I'm just a small female in a space.
Yeah.
And it's just, hey. Just like, wow.
Well, in Mel Gibson's imagination, this is a big,
this is what women want.
It calms the minds of the woman, because like she was like, "Oh man, you're funny." Like, and he's like the voiceover guy. He's like very like Indian accenty. Like he's like all the references are like he's like American born and like he knows everything, but like very heavy accent. I was like, what is happening? Like all the choices in the movie, like. Whenever it comes out on streaming in like 2 days or whatever, like watch that movie. It's just a very ridiculous movie from beginning to end. None of it makes sense. And then I went to see Companion, which is kind of like a Black Mirror episode turned into a full-length film. And the concept is these dudes, these quote-unquote nice guys who aren't really nice, like they are... They buy girlfriend robots,
but in the cells.
Yes, but in the beginning of the movie, it's played up as it's like from the point of view of the woman, and she's like, "I love this guy. We met cute at some fucking Trader Joe's or whatever, right?" And she's not going on a weekend getaway trip with his friends, and she's nervous about it. So the whole 30 minutes of the movie is from the point of view of the girlfriend, and then later you find out that the girlfriend's a robot. She just doesn't know it. And like the guy brought her. It's a convoluted story, but like the guy brought his robot girlfriend to this weekend getaway to kill a Russian guy who has a lot of money, so then he can blame it. He jailbroke the robot, but the company doesn't know, so he's gonna report back to the company and say, "Hey, your fucking robot went crazy. I don't know what happened. He killed my friend." They steal like the $12 million that the Russian is hiding for some reason. But the plan falls apart because the robot becomes wise, and then things kind of spiral out of control.
So he gets into like root access of the robot AI in order to make it do the killing.
Yeah, because the company that sells these girlfriend sex doll, whatever, they take away any ability to harm humans, self, animals. But he jailbroke it like an iPhone, and now he has all the controls. Like so, made her.
What if you want your sex robot to rough you up a little bit? What if that's what you're into?
But pick a different robot.
There is a intelligence gauge, and he had her set to 41%, and she didn't care for that. Like once she figured out that she was being manipulated.
Why am I dumb?
Yeah, like he wanted me very dumb, and she dials herself up to 100. But it's I mean, the movie kind of, the last third doesn't make sense, but it was an interesting concept from the beginning because like I didn't see the trailer for this, so I was like, what the hell's going on? Because she's like, I love this guy, we met here, and he's like, oh, that's just some story that you've been programmed to believe. Like it was very like, you're just a robot, who gives a shit about you? Like, and she's like, but I love you, da 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 da, and then it goes from there. But that movie I recommend less. You got to watch the Mel Gibson movie. That one is good.
Anything else?
I saw the Nickel Boys and September 5. They're both fine movies. No issues.
September 5 is a recreation of
the 72 Olympics.
The Munich Olympic thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I heard that was pretty good.
It was pretty good, yeah. I mean, I remember the story, so I was like, it kind of played out as I recall.
What is what makes it? It has some sort of a thing that makes it unique, right? Doesn't it? It is strictly from the perspective of.
From the sports division of ABC Sport or whoever was broadcasting.
That's right. Because, of course, Spielberg had dramatized this in Munich, so it's like, why are we doing this again? But it's because they have this very particular point of view here, which is from the wide world of sports from ABC.
I don't know how true to life this is, but there's always the scene with these movies where the news division was like, you guys are fucking sports. You can't handle this story. You need to hand it off to us. And like, no, this is happening here at the fucking Olympic Village, and this is our story. Like, they were like very territorial. There was like a good 20 minutes spent on this. It was very, I don't know if that's actually what happened, but it was pretty good.
Good. Anything else? Anything on Netflix to report?
I watched the unnecessary Netflix production of the O.J. Simpson murders.
I couldn't believe that, because we were watching a bunch of stupid Netflix stuff because we were like, we were fucking half dead. And it's like, okay, we'll put on some stupid Netflix TV, and that came up as a suggestion. It's like, what? Another fucking. I
don't need it.
I could just watch Made in America again.
Yeah, Made in America is a much better product, and
it's so good.
And what's weird is now it's, I don't know, it's been like what, 8-9 years. So some of these people, the interview talking heads are from the Made in America. They didn't get everyone from that. Like that was like the comprehensive. Yeah. That was a good one to watch. This one, they still had a couple of the people. Mark Furman was very heavily featured in this one, and also they had like the Detective Lang or whatever. He was from the original too, but this guy's gonna appear in every O.J. Simpson doc to explain away some of the fuck ups that his people did, like the initial detectives, where they didn't secure the area. People were just kind of walking all over the place. They let Furman go to basically like kind of made the initial discovery a mess to where the defense could come up with these cockamamie stories. Like, basically, they would have had no arguments to make if it weren't for their initial fuck-ups. Because they were, like, so, like, I don't know, starstruck, or I don't know what happened when they found out that it was Nicole Brown Simpson and O.J., I think that kind of threw them off. And they were behaving not in the way detectives would when there's a double murder.
They do, in the pre-roll preview of that, as you're scrolling through on Netflix, one of the clips that they show is of OJ pulling the gloves on over the nitrile gloves that he's wearing underneath. And it pisses me off fresh every single fucking time that Ito allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
That he was permitted to put on a pair of gloves before attempting to try on these dried out, custom fit, like perfectly like skin tight leather gloves that only ever fit him properly fucking
Until he murdered someone in them.
And also there was like what was there? Something with like arthritis medication, and he didn't take it, so like his fingers were like extra fat or something.
Yeah,
Basically, they kind of like put themselves in the best position for it not to fit. And it is the judge's fault, but it was also the prosecution for allowing that to happen. Yeah. Like, let's make
totally unacceptable.
Yeah, just there's a lot of bungling in that case.
Hey man, see if you can put these murder gloves on your hands in front of the people who are going to decide whether or not you did a murder, and then make an honest go of that. Oh, and also you can wear these other pair of gloves first on top of your hands. It's like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
The more you look into that case, the more you realize like what a layup of a case that should have been, because like there's just so much evidence, just so much pointing to one person.
My husband's here murdering me. His name is O.J. Simpson. He's here murdering me and my friend.
It could be an owl. It could be anything. I don't know. We'll never know.
What did we watch, Lori?
We watched so fucking much. Okay, so we finished Squid Game.
Squid Game season 2 sucked.
Just wait. Let me go through the.
Don't spoil it. I haven't seen the whole
before
thing.
You comment, okay? So you can decide what you use your minutes to talk about. Okay, finish Squid Game. We watched a bunch of that Homicide, true crime. We watched a bunch of House Hunter. No. Let me finish the fucking list, and then you can decide.
But I could be done if you go through the list. I just say my sentence and be done.
It's quite long.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, like it's very long. We watched some House Hunters. We watched that Don't Die documentary about the guy who tries to live forever. We watched some Mythbusters. We watched Stand By Me. We watched the Pro Bowl. We watched some Taskmaster Kids. We started Severance, and we watched The Princess Bride.
All right. What was the first one?
Squid Game.
Hunters. No.
Squid Game.
Squid Game.
Squid Game Season 2 is not actually Squid Game Season 2. It's the first half of the final season of Squid Game.
Is that why? Because I saw some announcement that the third one will be this year. So I was like, why are they doing it back-to-back so quickly? So I guess that answers that.
Yeah, this should not have been divided into 3 seasons.
But how many episodes do you get in the second season?
This was 7.
Oh, boy. So it ends in a cliffhanger? Without spoiling it too much?
It ends in a cliffhanger, and it needs 2 more hours.
So that means they're going to drag out the third season.
Yep.
Yeah, probably. But if you haven't started watching it yet, you can safely hold off until they drop season 3 so that you don't have to sit around for 6 months or whatever.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
And also, it's as an experience, it's simply nowhere near as effective as the first one was.
I like it more than the first one.
And a lot of it has to do with what might well be a sort of cultural barrier here in terms of attitude about humor and what is and is not funny. Like it's very corny and cheesy in ways that I don't remember the first season being.
I like it more.
And I didn't care for it.
Even though they're still facing potential death,
yeah, it's all the same.
They're still making.
Yeah, and like part of it is also like the fact that they have to hit so many of the same beats over and over again.
Yeah.
It was frustrating to watch, but whatever. I still the production value is still obviously fucking spectacular, and it looks great. I don't fucking care, I think is what it comes down to. Next was what?
That Homicide show.
Oh, the Dick Wolf executive produced. They did one in Manhattan a couple of years ago, and now they have a series in
the most difficult crimes.
Los Angeles.
Help, my husband is here murdering me.
And it's the same fucking problem as the first.
Very difficult to figure out who my husband, O.J. Simpson, is murdering me now.
Yeah, it starts with the opening crawl, which is like, these are the most difficult crimes. This is the most harried and worked and successful homicide units in the country are in Los Angeles, and these are their stories and the difficult crimes. And it's like within 5 minutes of the start of every episode, it's like, oh yeah, we know who fucking did this murder. It was
that guy who said he was going to kill that other guy.
It was the record producer who was the only person around in his mansion and who was known to wave guns about crazily. It's like, how are we possibly going to prove that this guy did the murder? There's a lot of
We
that.
watched that.
And then
House Hunters.
Yeah, House Hunters is stupid.
Don't Die.
Don't Die. I was surprised to find myself more on Brian Johnson's. I'm more sympathetic to Brian Johnson's
Well, once you bring in the religion stuff.
plight than I expected to be. But also, that's a crazy person who shouldn't want the things that he
he's a
wants.
crazy person.
And I believe is mistaken in his allocation of his vast personal resources. But, fucking, it's a free country. Do what you want to do with your money, I guess, guy. But my feeling about this guy, just from watching the trailer, as I said on the show before, I'm sure, is what are you, all of this extra life that you're buying later on down the road, you're paying for now in not really living in the way that I think most people would say.
But he's clearly enjoying himself.
Is living. Yeah, but like, if you can't go out in the sun and you can't have relationships with people because of the things that you're committed to, then what time are you buying later on down the road? And
But it's a project.
he says that he insists over and over again in this movie throughout different interviews how much he likes living, that he's just super fucking passionate about life. And it's not clear to me that he knows what it is. Like, it's not clear to me.
And also at this point, I think he needs to believe that for this, thing to work. What's weird is that he's like a Mormon or something, right? Like, basically, like, his one kid
that's the thing. He grew up with all this control.
Yeah.
And this is all a reaction to that control.
It is weird being in a religious culty thing where, like, if you're out, you have to, like, basically your whole family, they're like, it's like a subscription model kind of thing where, like, if you discontinue, you don't have access to them anymore. Like, you have to, like, live an entirely different life. And at least one of the kids follows up with him, but that's going to suck.
Yeah.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, the great Rob Reiner,
So fucking
Stephen
good.
King adaptation of a short novella called The Body. Threw that on one night, and I stayed up and watched it all the way through. It's really great, and the only thing to say about it is it might be one of those things where if you didn't see it before, it might not have the same impact on you as
I don't know,
as those who are used to it would expect it to have on you. It's just such an incredibly efficient movie. There is just nothing to the story. This story is 4 12-year-old boys decide to go walking down the train tracks to find a dead body, and some older boys, led by a very funny Kiefer Sutherland, sort of give them shit along the way, and then they have a confrontation at the end. And that's the entire plot of the movie. Like, that's the whole thing, 2 sentences. But the way that it's told and the character work that is done, and even down to Richard Dreyfuss's narration of the thing as the grown-up Will Wheaton, which is not a believable series of casting decisions. Like, Richard Dreyfuss is not the grown-up Will Wheaton in any way, but the performances are all fucking
so
spectacular,
good.
and it's Stephen King at his non-supernatural best as a writer. So, have you seen Stand By Me?
I don't think I have.
Oh, I hope you watch it.
I'll have to watch it one of these days.
That's because maybe you won't think it's as good, but like I can't imagine thinking that.
If it suffers from anything, it suffers from that Rob Reiner schmaltziness.
Yeah.
Because he's such a fucking schmaltzy guy, and it's such a sentiment
But it
weirdo.
works because it takes place in the farther back past.
Right.
Like shot
It's
in the 80s, set in the 50s.
one of those classic shot in the 80s about the 50s stories.
So like the
It's
schmaltziness
nostalgia
works.
on top of nostalgia. The schmaltziness more or less works. I was looking at, as a result of seeing both Stand By Me and The Princess Bride, Rob Reiner's run in the 1980s is just fucking incredible. And then it ends, and he does nothing good pretty much forever after that. And it's a very strange filmography as a director. You've got Spinal Tap, and I'm just going to hit the hits here, but Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, North, which is a weird fucking movie, and then The American President, which is a movie that I have a very soft spot for. But after that, it's like nothing. He does a movie called Ghosts of Mississippi, which is super fucking weird. And then, like, literally nothing worth watching after that, I don't think.
So he still made movies, just not any good ones.
Right. He kept making movies. But, like, from Spinal Tap in 84 through The American President in 96 or whatever it was, like, just movies that I just want to put on the television and watch, and then nothing after that. It's very weird.
You've seen Princess Bride, right?
Yes. I read the book, too.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've never read the book.
It's good. I read it.
What do you think about? Surely you've seen The American President. It was written by Sorkin,
I mean, they had there were some characters from that were in the West Wing, right?
Characters.
Well, actors, not characters.
Actors, rather.
Right?
Yeah, actors.
Let's call them characters.
Yeah.
Yes, Abe, those were the same.
But yeah, no, I like that movie. Yeah. Was it Sidney Wade or what was her name? The Annette Bening's character.
Annette Bening. I don't remember
Yeah.
Annette Bening's character's name. Believe it or not. What else on the list that I didn't get to?
We started Severance.
Oh yeah, and Severance season 2. We are 2 episodes in out of I think an available 3.
Yeah.
I had a 2-year lead on you guys, and now I'm 2 episodes behind you guys.
Without offering any spoilers about Severance season 2, I will just say that it goes to such incredible lengths in the first hour to reestablish the fact that you're watching television. And I know that that's a silly complaint because I shouldn't complain about television as I'm choosing to watch television. But the thing about television that is most reliable is that television will do whatever it can to reset things to the status quo, right? Like that's what television does best. Is at the start of an episode, life is one way, and by the end of the episode, life is going to be exactly as it was at the beginning. That's how sitcoms work, right? That's what the classic Simpsons formulation is. You sitting on that couch at the start of the episode every single time, no matter what. I think that prestige television is basically can be in one way that second order prestige TV can be described is just a lengthening of that process. Then we're just going to take the traditional sitcom situation and instead of giving it to you over the course of 42 minutes or 22 minutes or maybe in the case of a longer dramatic arc over the course of a single season, we're going to take TV and we're going to stretch it the fuck out over the course of 5 or 6 years. But fundamentally at its core, they will occasionally remind you, oh, you know what this is? This is fucking television.
Right.
And so that's what the first episode of Severance Season 2 is all about. It's about this long, arduous process of getting us back to television. And then episode 2 of Season 2 is then drilling into the behind the scenes of what happened in episode 1 and showing you what it took to get us back to default mode, back to setting the table here. And it's like, it's such an eye roll for me, the first 2 hours of this season of Severance. It's like, yes, okay, fine. I get it. You have to reset the table. But like this was such a pointless exercise these first 2 hours, and I'm sure it'll be a fun season. Right. I'm sure it'll be a blast to find out what the fuck is going on.
I don't think we're ever going to find out what's going on.
Yeah, it seemed like especially if they're going to do a season 3, they got to stretch this out even further. As much as I love television, that's like precisely the reason why I love movies because like I can just sit down and in 2 hours I'll have the whole thing. Like unless it's one of these goofy multi-part nonsense, but like most movies. Like Flight Risk, there's no Flight Risk. I'm sure they're going to make another one if it makes enough money. But like,
it'll be another loop.
Another loop, yeah. But it won't just be like it's like you get all of the things that you need to get for a story to be told in one sitting.
Right. Unlike going to watch a fucking MCU movie or something.
Yeah,
right?
like those
the
stupid fucking
MCU
movies.
is just fucking television up there on the big screen.
And it's even worse than television because, like, oh, we're in a different reality, or we're going back in time, or just like nothing matters. Like, at least television, they don't do that.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything that we've been watching here
It is. I made a list.
lately.
And it's almost midnight.
Is it
It's
really?
11, well, it's 11:30.
God damn.
I have to work tomorrow.
Why you guys want to talk so much? That's the real question here.
I don't know why I say anything.
We haven't been here for a while. And
We are sick still. We have to go to bed early. And now we're going to prolong being sick because you chose to do this.
no, we're going to be just fine. Hey, but have you got anything
You
else?
get to do not shit tomorrow. I have to talk to people all day.
Man, I got to edit this fucking monstrosity. What are you talking about?
It's hard. It's hard. It's not fair for America.
Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. We will talk to you next time.
Later.
On the bright side,
The bright side.
Abe, you like the bright side.
Of course.
A city killer asteroid has a slim chance to crash into Earth. Here's what to know. First spotted December 27, 2024 by the El Sos Observatory in Chile. I would like to hang out at the El Sos Observatory. Based on its brightness, astronomers estimate it is between 130 and 300 feet wide. It's a football field at the big end. And it is a 1.6% chance that the asteroid will strike Earth on December 22nd, 2032.
2032.
Oh my gosh, the solstice.
Wow. Although, I mean, it's
2032.
likely going to hit like the ocean, right?
Possible impact sites include over the eastern Pacific Ocean, northern South America, the Atlantic Ocean, Africa, the Arabian Sea, and South Asia.
They've named all of the parts.
I know, right?
Large portions of the country of the globe, it seems. But that's exciting. That's not all bad.
Well, okay. You see down there, like if you close this little ad, a similar scenario, blah, 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 in 2004, there's a higher percent, 2.7.
Yeah. Initially projected to have a nearly 3% chance of striking the Earth in 2029, but then they ruled it out.
Oh, so ruled it down to 0%?
Yes.
A different one.
Bummer. Well, at least we're not getting the dinosaur one.
No, although the Tunguska event is fucking bonkers, where it leveled 80 million trees across nearly 800 square miles of Russia.
When did that happen?
1910 or something, I think?
Wow. 1908.
1908.
Holy shit. That's not that long ago.
There are any number of absurd things that USAID and any other grant-giving organization within the federal government can be accused of doing that with a proper audit can be exposed and can be dismantled, right? Piece by piece, you should be able to go through and say, no, this is ridiculous. We're not going to spend $15 million on queer propaganda in Peru or whatever the fuck, right? Like, that's the sort of thing that we're just not going to do anymore. Maybe it is worthwhile in some defensible way, but it's just not the function of the United States taxpayer. We are going to queer the world through Hollywood the old-fashioned way, the way that America has for generation after generation, not with comic book propaganda in the local language. But instead, they do it in the most obnoxious way possible, that is only going to cause the most chaos possible, that is only going to be challenged in courts, and is only going to delegitimize the effort in the eyes of fully half the population. Because the goal is not to actually reduce the amount of spending and influence that the federal government has. The goal is to piss off your political enemies. And that's all it comes down to.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.